Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where Karen really doesn't like thrift stores. Karen insults me for shopping at a thrift store. I, 28, female, have been with my partner for 3 years, and some of his family is wealthy, but not all of them. His cousin, Marie, about 38, female, is very lavish and arrogant. I've never felt welcomed by her. My family wasn't dirt poor, but we definitely struggled growing up. I don't deny my upbringing, and while I'm not very defensive about it, I try not to take things personally. Recently, during a family reunion, we were talking about how I've developed an interest in thrifting, both getting stuff from the thrift shops and selling and donating things. My mother-in-law and I were talking about how that's such a nice hobby and a nice thing to do. I mentioned that I got a nice quality bag from a thrift shop, then Marie inserts herself into the conversation and says that she owns the same bag. I said that I was lucky and I got a very nice deal for it since I can't actually afford to buy it new. Then Marie says that some things from the thrift shops are disgusting and bad taste and leftovers from others. I found that comment nasty, so I told her, well, not necessarily. This was a very nice brand and in great shape. And Marie gets defensive and adds, I bought the same bag from the actual store and I had to wait and save up for it. That's how it's done. This is why I think I'm the jerk. I know Marie isn't that wealthy and they've been struggling financially. Obviously, she keeps that hidden and doesn't speak about it. So I tell her, well, it seems that I got a better deal since I bought the disgusting bag for less. Marie asks me, are you calling me disgusting? And I tell her, no, I'm just saying that you're not the smartest if you're buying things that you can't afford. She got really upset at me and told me that I was a very mean person, which I think I partially was, but I didn't care. She deserved that, and I don't think anyone should put down others for no reason. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Some people think it's acceptable to talk crap and put people down to make themselves feel better. Sometimes you just gotta let them know you see them. Not the jerk. She's not terribly bright, is she? Spending beyond one's means is not a sign of wealth or status, it's a sign of foolishness. Everyone sucks here. Marie is a jerk, but that doesn't mean you have to be one as well. There are ways to make your point that there's nothing wrong with thrifting without calling her stupid. Am I the jerk if I accidentally trip and spill wine all over this girl who's wearing white to my sister's wedding? I, 17 female, am at my sister's wedding right now. I'm so happy for her. Here's the problem. This random guest, who I don't know, is wearing the very beautiful, very obvious wedding gown to what's supposed to be my sister's special day. Back when I was younger and she was a teen, she told me that if she got married and someone wore white to her wedding, she wanted me to spill a gallon of syrup and glitter on her as payback. Now the only unfortunate part is that I have no access to syrup or glitter. You might be thinking wine because that's the most commonly used weapon in these situations, but they won't let me near the alcohol table. The only drinks available to the 5 kids here is Sprite, orange juice, and water. Now I would do orange juice, but there's only a little bit left and my cousin wouldn't be happy about it. So what to do? I'm pretty sure everyone here has noticed the white dress and is a tad confused by it. My whole family and the groom's side aren't big tradition followers, so you basically could wear anything to this wedding and not be directly called out. However, this seems very deliberate, and I know my sister has noticed it, because how the heck would you not? So, am I the jerk? Honestly, just tell me what to do because I don't know. I might go talk to her. I love talking to crazy people. Also, don't come at me for making an Am I the Jerk post about something so stupid because I find it hilarious. Ask your sister if she approved it. If not, loudly ask the guest why she's wearing white to someone else's wedding. But check with your sister first, not the jerk. Hard to say, as it depends on your sister's wishes and who this woman is to her. You may be really messing up if you do this and you just don't realize it. If I were you, I would talk to your sister and say you either want to speak to this woman or potentially spill wine on her and see what she says. In my opinion, before wine, I would ask her why she's wearing a wedding dress to another woman's wedding. If she's rude about it, take it from there. First though, speak to your sister if you're able to. Update a few hours later. So I want to make it clear that I'm very much a gentle giant and I would never do something so bold. Me and my cousin thought this would be pretty funny to see what other people thought. Now I finally spoke to my sister and her husband. My sister actually didn't notice her and got pretty upset when I pointed it out. I felt kind of bad about that. I asked her if she knew the person, to which she said no, then asked her husband if he did, and he said it was his cousin's +1 and girlfriend. I asked her if she wanted me to do anything about it, and she told me yes, but also to not make a big scene out of it. So one thing I'm pretty good at is info fishing. I made my way up to the guest with my little cousin and started some small talk with the guests around her, which eventually led to her being brought into the conversation. Now my little cousin is blunt and childish, which is why I brought him along, and asks why she has the white dress, as planned. She stutters a little, then mumbles something about her being colorblind. Okay, what? I've heard of colorblindness where you can't see anything but black or white, but if I'm gonna be honest, I kind of just walked away after that. Like, how do I respond to that? Because if she's actually colorblind and thought the dress was a light shade of some color other than white, then I am the jerk and she doesn't deserve to be complained to, right? Then again, if she's lying, that's crazy. I basically just told my sister that, and she gave me a "what on earth" face. She decided not to worry about it and just have a happy wedding. I'm happy for her, and honestly, I'm just happy she's such a great person and so much better than me. You're an awesome sibling for looking out for your sister's wedding. And no, you're not the jerk for calling out stupid behavior. I highly doubt she's wearing a white dress by accident. And if she really is colorblind, how did your cousin who brought this girl not think to say, "Honey, I know you're colorblind, but maybe let's not wear white to the one type of event you're not supposed to wear white to"? Honestly, I think the colorblind thing was just an excuse because she didn't expect to be called out, especially by the kids. Then, when she was so embarrassed that she left. Good for you, OP. You handled it well. Update 2, about 7 hours later. So me and my cousin have decided that we are the jerks and we accept it. It would have been worse if we acted on the joke, however. The woman has left and her boyfriend is nowhere to be seen, so all is well. Me and my cousin brought this post up to my sister, who was a bit tipsy, so I'll ask again later, and asked if we should delete it since it was unkind of us to do it at her wedding. She laughed at us after reading the post and told us that we were fine and also hilarious. I'm glad my sister is happy. When my sister's happy, I'm happy. Let's just celebrate that my sister got married. Sure, I'm just 17 and acting childish, but you can bet your backside that I'll live out my last year of childhood acting like the biggest toddler of all. I love you, sis. You're the jerk. This whole thing is so childish, and you created so much drama that didn't need to be created. Your sister has no idea. The girlfriend and boyfriend left because you made her feel uncomfortable. You assumed it was ill-intended, and it was due to something she couldn't control. Childish behavior. Grow up. I'm glad that you chose not to ruin the dress. When I was a young, poor college student, I only had a white dress. I was asked to sit at the entrance table to ask people to sign their wedding book. I did dye my dress a light green. In many cultures, people do not wear white dresses for the bride. My Indian friend had a very colorful dress and changed into her white, Western culture dress later in the evening. Filipinos wear white or beige barongs or dresses for all kinds of dress-up events. If it was clearly an attempt to upstage the bride, like a mother-in-law wearing a full white gown, then I wouldn't feel too guilty causing some trouble. Ex-wives or girlfriends, definitely no. My mom wore a beige skirt and top to my wedding because it was the only thing that fit her well and fancy enough for a wedding. I didn't care. Am I the jerk for skipping our twins' high school graduation for the birth of our oldest daughter's baby? My husband, who's 48, and I, 47 female, have 3 wonderful kids, twins who are 18, and an older daughter who's 25. Recently, we were faced with an incredibly difficult situation, and now our twins are very upset with us. We're genuinely torn and wondering if we made the wrong decision. Our older daughter was due to give birth around the same time as the twins' high school graduation. As fate would have it, she went into labor on the exact day of the graduation ceremony. This was our first grandchild, and our daughter was understandably anxious and wanted us by her side. We made the tough call to be there for her, thinking that we could make it up to the twins later. We did inform the twins about the situation, hoping they would understand, but they were clearly disappointed. Since then, they've been giving us the silent treatment and have been ignoring us completely. They've been going out together, buying food for themselves, and even celebrating their graduation without us. It's heartbreaking to see them so hurt and distant. They aren't speaking to their sister either, which makes the situation even more painful. Our son bluntly told us that he values us and his sister more than a baby who has its whole life ahead, while the graduation is a once-in-a-lifetime event. He also warned us not to try talking to his sister, saying she wouldn't bother giving trash parents the satisfaction of a response. I've noticed that my husband is deeply affected by this. He tries to stay strong, but I can see the pain in his eyes every time the twins ignore him or make hurtful comments. He suggested we spend the entire week spoiling them with gifts and special outings to make it up to them. We thought maybe we could do something special to show them how much we care and to celebrate their achievements in a different way. Unfortunately, this idea didn't seem to bridge the gap either. We're genuinely at a loss and filled with regret. We thought they would understand the importance of both events and that we could celebrate their graduation later in a special way. But seeing their reaction, we can't help but wonder if we made a grave mistake. So, am I the jerk for skipping our twins' high school graduation for the birth of our grandchild? We are deeply saddened by the rift this has caused in our family and are desperately seeking advice on how to mend it. After seeing OP's comments, it sounds like they could easily have had at least one parent attend the graduation and that the elder daughter went into labor and they completely dismissed the twins from their minds. I'm also guessing from the twins' reactions that the parents make a habit of putting the twins second or third or last. You're the jerk. Info: why didn't at least one of you go to their graduation? Did your daughter have a husband or boyfriend there? Why couldn't you have left long enough for the graduation? Was she in serious labor by that time? OP: to clarify, our daughter's boyfriend left her when he found out she was pregnant. When she went into labor, we both rushed to be with her, and in the moment, we weren't thinking straight. We were overwhelmed and wanted to support her through the birth of her first child. Looking back, we realized that one of us should have gone to the graduation. It was a major oversight on our part, and we deeply regret it. We were so focused on being there for our daughter that we didn't consider the impact our absence would have on the twins' important day. We know we're the jerks in this situation, and we're trying to find a way to make it right. You're the jerk, both of you. Talk about favoritism. OP: I know it seems like it, but we really don't have favorites. We love both our kids equally. We were dumb and made a decision on the spot, and we regret it a lot. Update: to address a common question from the comments, the reason we were in such a hurry to get to our daughter's labor is that when I was pregnant with the twins, we had a big scare. The fear and anxiety from that experience still haunts me, and when our older daughter went into labor, those emotions came rushing back. We were terrified something might go wrong, and we felt an overwhelming need to be there with her. After reading the comments on my post, I showed my husband what I had written and the responses we received. He was deeply affected by the feedback and agreed that we need to apologize sincerely. We decided to have a family meeting. It was one of the hardest conversations we've ever had, but it was necessary. We apologized to our twins, expressing our deep regret for missing their graduation and for the pain that we caused them. My husband, with tears in his eyes, admitted that we made the wrong choice and asked for their forgiveness. I followed, echoing his sentiments and apologizing for not being there for them during such an important milestone. The twins were understandably still upset, but they listened. Our son spoke up, saying that while it will take time to heal, he appreciated our apology. Our daughter expressed how much it hurts to feel like they were second place, but said that she was willing to work towards rebuilding our relationship. They both ultimately accepted our apologies. We're planning a special celebration just for them, inviting their friends and other family members who supported them. It wasn't a replacement for the graduation we missed, but it was a step towards showing them how much we care. This experience has taught us a valuable lesson about priorities and communication. We are deeply sorry for the pain we've caused, and we hope that with time and effort, our family can heal and grow stronger from this. I'm sorry for hurting them, and thank you Reddit for being brutally honest. It's true one of the parents could have gone to the graduation, but it's still only a high school graduation. I can't believe the twins are so upset about this. What are you talking about? Only a high school graduation. A high school graduation is a huge milestone for anyone. It's seen as a crucial moment in a young person's life and also seen as the start of their transition into adulthood. Why wouldn't they be upset that their parents weren't there? It's a huge milestone for anyone? That's just your opinion. It's understandable to be upset, but their reactions seem too much. Childbirth can be dangerous to the mom and the baby, especially given their medical history. I don't know. I get that they're upset, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not on the level where one should give the silent treatment and hold on to that resentment for weeks or longer. If they always do this to the twins, then okay, camel straw back. But if it's just a one-off, then I don't know. But yeah, the compromise should have been one parent each. Honestly, one is expected to graduate from high school. It's not some big accomplishment, you just do it. I greatly fear these twins don't understand human reproduction. They think that the parents needed to go to their ceremony because the baby has its whole life ahead of it, completely unaware that childbirth can sometimes be dangerous. Nah, the twins are totally in the wrong here. They need to learn their feelings are not the most important thing in certain situations. They can be upset at the circumstances, but it was totally out of line for them to be mad at any one of the people involved, especially their sister. A birth is not just a milestone like a graduation, it's a medical event that's scary, painful, and sometimes dangerous. It sucks their parents missed the graduation, but if they can't see how much higher stakes the birth was, they're extremely self-centered. Well, who do you think is the jerk? The parents or the twins? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for wearing my friend's merch in front of my boyfriend's friends? Last weekend, my boyfriend and I went out for an outdoor excursion with his friends. It was very casual and we were all in athleisure. I brought my favorite hoodie, which happens to be from my friend's company. It has the company name on the chest and the logo on the back, just like one of those random merch things they give out at a charity day, etc. But I love it because it's perfectly oversized and soft on the inside. One of my boyfriend's friends noticed and asked if I worked there, and I explained how I got it. This triggered a lot of questions from the group because they Googled the company after I mentioned it. My boyfriend said on the way home that it was inappropriate for me to wear clothing with another guy's name on it around his friends. The company name is literally my friend's last name. It's not like a football jersey or something, and that I embarrassed him. I'm trying to wrap my head around it, but I can't understand what the big deal was. Everyone I've asked is on my side and says he's massively the jerk, but they're my friends. My one friend did say that while my boyfriend is being petty, I did make him look small, and while my boyfriend shouldn't have said anything, it makes sense he felt a bit awkward. This is the first instance of my boyfriend overreacting to something like this, so I'm trying to understand if this is a misstep by me and I'm just not noticing, because this hasn't been like him up until this point. Not the jerk, and your boyfriend needs to get over it. Just because you wear merch from a company that has a guy's name on it does not mean that you're going to hook up with said guy. It's merch, for goodness sake. It's not like this friend gave you jewelry or something. It's something he had for sale and you purchased. You know, with money, like how capitalism works. Him getting upset by this is like you getting upset over the fact that he bought a car off of a female friend of his and wants to drive it around and stuff. Not the jerk. Your boyfriend is acting like an insecure, overly possessive jerk. Is he like this in general? Because that's the vibe that I'm getting. Your boyfriend is super insecure, and instead of dealing with it the right way, he puts the blame on you. You did nothing wrong, not the jerk. My mother thinks she can sleep in a tent in my yard despite knowing the home isn't mine. I'm a 29-year-old woman, and my mother and I have had our problems. Just like many other toxic mother-daughter relationships, I left home as a teenager to escape the environment our home had become. I moved in with a friend in a different state, which also didn't end super well, but that's a story for a different post, and continued to keep communication open. She's continued to cause drama at every major point in my life, but I consider myself a pro at moving on at this point. I have planned PTO coming up in a couple of months because my job will be closed for renovations, and she's been planning a visit during this time. Over the past few months, she's mentioned it a few times, and we've worked through details together. Today, she emailed me to say that when she comes to visit, she will likely not have funding for anything more than gas. She plans to bring a tent for her and her husband to sleep in during the stay and has inquired about available space in my yard, despite being fully aware that I do not own the home I live in and that I do not have the right to allow her to stay in our yard in a tent and use our facilities for any amount of time, much less several days. At first, I hoped it was some awful attempt at humor, putting me in an uncomfortable position in order to laugh at my discomfort, because it's something she's done several times in my life. Once, she even pretended to have full-blown Tourette syndrome, complete with vocal tics worthy of an episode of South Park, in the middle of a crowded shopping center, just to laugh at my humiliation at her antics, so this seemed likely. Unfortunately, she was serious, and when I told her no, that I couldn't help her with this, she simply said, "All right, I'll figure it out myself." As if it isn't the most irresponsible choice to drive halfway across the country as a grown adult who knows they can't afford to do such a thing. I have no idea what will happen, but I'm expecting a, "What, don't you want to see us?" response anytime, since I advised her not to make the trip at all since she clearly can't afford to. As a grown adult who can't afford to travel myself, I'm astounded at the audacity. Edit. Why not cut her off completely? A. I honestly don't have a good reason, just that I'd feel guilty. I'm the only family member out of state, and I worry that cutting her out will result in the loss of family I would regret losing. I'm just afraid, I guess. Why don't you offer to put her in a hotel? A. I'm like a lot of people in my age group these days. I'm struggling. I'm not even the only earner in the house, and we're still chasing the wrong end of the paycheck at the end of the day. I'd love to have been able to go back and visit myself, but it would be irresponsible to attempt a trip that I can't afford, and putting my own little family at risk is not worth the moment of happiness I might find checking in on others that I miss. Is it possible her living situation has changed, and she doesn't plan on leaving my yard? A. I never even considered this, and it horrifies me to see it worded out. I would love to think she could never pull something like that, but honestly, I feel like anything is possible. Update. Wow. Apparently this whole "I can't afford anything but gas" story was all a ruse to get to spend more time together while she visits. Allegedly, she is more than comfortable financially and has no fear that this trip will put her into financial hardship as she's making better money than ever before. Plus, she gets really good deals on rooms because she works for a popular hotel brand. I honestly don't know what to think at this point. I don't know if it'll be worse if she's lying about her financial stability to make me feel better and let my guard down about her visit, or if it's 100% legitimate and she lied about financial hardship simply to play on my emotions. Either way, I can't stop her from making the trip. All I can do is make sure I stick to my boundaries and not allow her to overstep them. Thank you for the helpful advice and honest opinions. I really needed to hear it. Am I the jerk for snapping at my husband in front of his family and revealing that he hasn't helped me like he claims? For my whole life, I, 30 female, have had a lot of anxiety when it comes to driving. It's never been too much of a problem as I live in a city and I can walk wherever I need to go. I've been married to my husband, Stan, who's 32, for 3 years, together for 6. Throughout our relationship, he's tried to help me learn how to drive. The problem is, Stan is not a very good teacher and gets very impatient and angry every time we try. We go to the parking lot of an abandoned warehouse sometimes. It's huge. Anyway, if I make one small mistake, for example, if I don't check my mirrors for a long enough time, Stan yells. I would already be nervous at the wheel, but with the yelling, it would cause me to break down and cry. I have a brother, Paul, who's 33, who I hang out with typically once a week. A few months ago, I was talking to Paul about how I want to learn how to drive, but I'm very nervous about it. He offered to help teach me when we hang out. Paul's husband, Chris, also was willing to help me out, and they actually made me feel so much more at ease behind the wheel. I thought I was bad at driving, but it turns out I was just anxious. Another factor that made me want to learn, besides feeling like I need to do this, is that Stan has told me that he won't have a baby with me until I get my license, which I definitely understand. 2 weeks ago, on my day off from work, Paul and Chris took me to the DMV and I finally got my license. I also bought a used car a few days ago from money that I've been saving up for years. I'm so happy that I have the support from my brother and his husband. I thought Stan would be mad that I did all of this behind his back, and he was somewhat disappointed that I didn't want his help. I love him so much, but honestly, he wasn't the right teacher for me. Anyway, on Sunday, Stan and I both had off from work, and he told me he had a surprise for me. He took me to his parents' house, where they had a celebration for me, basically like a little party congratulating me because I learned how to drive. Halfway through, my mother-in-law was giving a speech about how proud she was of me, but also how proud she was of my husband for all the support and lessons he was giving me. I could feel the anger rising in my chest. Stan had been telling everyone that he was the one who had been teaching me to drive. I snapped and told everyone, basically, that the few times Stan tried to teach me, I always ended up crying because he would yell at me until he was blue in the face. That the only people who helped me and gave me confidence were Paul and Chris, and that if anything, Stan made things worse for me, which was true. But now Stan won't talk to me. My mother-in-law, father-in-law, and sister-in-law are on my side, but my 2 brother-in-laws and a couple of cousins are on Stan's side. I do kind of feel like a jerk, but at the same time, everything I said was true. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, but are you absolutely sure this is the person you want to have a baby with? If he can't muster the patience to teach you how to do something, what's he going to be like with a 2-year-old? Not the jerk. Do not have kids with him. He's not a patient man, and now he shows that he lies. Not good father material. Honestly, not good husband material either. Landlord tried to strong-arm me into letting him into our home. Did not go well. A few years ago, we were in a small 2.5-bedroom apartment. The landlord basically never talked to us. We paid on time and kept everything neat and tidy. Well, one day, his lordship decides he wants to sell the place. That's no problem. He wants to give the place a bit of a paint. Also not a problem. He told us that he would be sanding the walls of the staircase. The main area of the house was upstairs. Downstairs had a bedroom, office, and garage attached. And that would be that. Fine, no problem. Off you go. But instead of stopping at the top of the stairs, he decided to carry on to one of the walls that led into my son's room. Had we known he wanted to do this, we would have done what was necessary. But we didn't know. And so every inch of my son's room, his clothes, carpet, bed, toys, the lot, were covered in a very fine dust from sanding the painted drywall. It took hours of wiping down and vacuuming to get it back, and he had to sleep elsewhere for 2 nights after his breathing and skin suffered. I mentioned this to the property manager, who was an absolute delight to work with, and she said that she would advise him that we would need more details about what work he wanted to do. This seemed fine. He then wanted to come back and do some painting. Again, that's not a problem. It's value to the house and it looks better, etc. However, he told us that he would be there for 4 hours. 8 hours later, he decided that was enough for the day and called it quits. That night, he messaged me saying he wanted to come back and do more painting the next day. I said that didn't work for us. It wasn't enough notice, didn't allow us peace of living, etc. He then tried to claim that in our contract, the tenancy contract he called it, it stated that we must allow him to complete projects in a timely fashion, and if I were to decline him entry, then the cost of the rest of the project and its completion would lie with me and be my responsibility. So I sent his texts off to lovely property manager again, who called me and said not to worry, she would sort it out. About a week goes by and I get a text asking very nicely if I would allow them access in a few days to complete the work. No problem. His lordship and a pal arrived to carry on painting and were there for another 8 hours. However, this time, I don't think they took any pleasure in it. My PC is next to my PS5, so on my PC I put on Tiptoe Through the Tulips on repeat for the full 8 hours, max volume. I just popped my headphones into my controller and gamed all day long. After 8 hours, his lordship comes up the stairs and into the lounge, it's openly planned, and said, with great strain and weariness of a man worn down, that they had finally finished. Without breaking eye contact from my screen, I said, "'Kay, bye," and he just hovered for a second before shakily walking out. As soon as I heard the front door close, I turned the music off. No doubt it was for you, big boy. Don't lie to people, especially those who can, read a contract. My Karen friend married her husband only for his money. I'm 29, female, and my friend, 28, female, let's name her Heather, has been married to her husband Matt for 2 years. They also have a 1-year-old daughter. Heather would typically date tall, muscular, tattooed guys. Her husband is a very nice guy, a great guy. I think he's handsome, but he's nowhere close to Heather's type. Now, Matt makes very good money. He has a very lucrative job and makes upwards of 6 digits a year. So Heather had told me during the beginning stages of their relationship that that was one of the main reasons she was dating him. I did advise her against continuing the relationship if that was the only reason that she wanted to be in it. They got engaged. She did manage to convince me at the time that money wasn't the only reason, and off they go to get married. So here we are, a couple of years later, and they have a beautiful daughter. Matt is as happy as he can be, thinks he's got a great life, a great wife that loves him, all of that. Lately, Heather has started complaining to me that she doesn't find him attractive, that she doesn't want to hook up with him, that she cringes when he touches her, and she's having a hard time hiding it. And she's only staying with him because she likes their lifestyle. Now, Heather has a decent job, and she could support herself, but definitely not at the same lifestyle she's become accustomed to. Normally, I would have let it go, but recently she has confided in me that she's begun talking to an ex-boyfriend of hers, her typical type, a bartender, so not able to provide for her the way she would like, but she's been talking to him nonetheless, visiting him at his work, texting, nothing serious yet, but I do think it's headed in that direction. I couldn't take it anymore, and I gave her a big fat "I told you so." I called her a terrible person and a snake for being a gold digger, that she is essentially emotionally cheating on her husband and will likely progress to a physical cheating soon, and that she should leave Matt if she feels this way, but she won't because she likes his money. I'm sorry to say that I went off on her, which may have been uncalled for, but I think she is absolutely deserving of it, and she needed to be called out for her crappy behavior. She said I'm an unsupportive friend and that I have no idea what it's like, and that I need to apologize to her if I want to keep her friendship. So, am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Heather? Please let us know. It's not too late, OP. You still have time to tell Matt the truth. He really should know about this. My heart goes out to that poor guy. Entitled Mom thinks that my baby's birthday is her day. Back in April of this year, my wife had our baby. During that time, lockdown was still rampant and restrictions were still strict. The hospital rules were that my wife was allowed to have 2 people on file that could visit her, but only one could be in the hospital at a time. Being her husband and the father of her child, she obviously chose me as her first support person, and then she chose my mom as her second. My wife was high risk, so she had to have a planned C-section. Prior to the operation, I texted my mom, getting ready to go back to the operating room, say a quick prayer. Then I went back with my wife. She ended up losing a lot of blood during the surgery, so her recovery took a really long time, several hours before I was even allowed to see her. During my wife's recovery, I was in the nursery with the baby, making sure that everything was okay with him. About an hour into my wife's recovery, a nurse comes in and says, "Hey, there's someone on the phone asking for you. Can I transfer them over?" I say sure, and the phone in the nursery rings, so I answer. Me. "Hello?" Entitled mom. "How dare you don't answer me? I've been texting and calling all day." Me. "What do you mean? I don't even have my phone. My wife is still in recovery." "You are a liar. You texted me earlier that you were going back to the surgery room." Me. "Yeah, I did. But then I left my phone in the hospital room so that I could be emotionally supportive to my wife and not be on my phone during the birth of my child." "What? You mean you didn't even take a video of the surgery? I told everyone that I would have videos to post." Me. No, I didn't. And even if I did, they wouldn't be for Facebook." "I can't believe you. Don't talk to me that way. I can't believe that you would do this to me on my day." Then I got tired of her and just hung up the phone mid-conversation. I then just didn't talk to her for a while and finally had time to get my phone back. I take some pictures of the baby, send them to my mom, hoping she was just being emotional earlier, and give her a call. Entitled mom is crying. "Why would you do this to me?" Me. "Do what to you?" "Push me away like this. It's been hours and I haven't been able to see the baby." Me. "Huh? My wife is still in recovery. You're lucky I'm even able to send you pictures." "I don't care if she's still in surgery. I should be allowed to see him. This is my day and you are ruining it." Me. "Mama, listen. I love you, but you are not doing this to me today. I'll talk to you later." And I hung up again. Later that day, after my wife was back in the normal room and out of recovery, she had been checked on multiple times and was able to get up and walk a little bit. We let my mom come see the baby. Remember, while she was in there, I had to leave the room due to lockdown policy. The whole time she was in the room with the baby and my wife, she was complaining about how she was pushed out, left her in the dark, and we ruined her day. And she kept me away from my baby by not leaving for more than an hour. I know that this isn't as crazy as some of the other stories, but it's still entitled and narcissistic. And trust me, I have plenty more stories of my own mom being an entitled mom. I might just share some more soon. Edit. For everyone saying that I should have protected my wife and not let my mom come in, I agree. In hindsight, I was wrong. I've grown up with her narcissism my whole life, and it has become normalized to me. My mom was calling and texting the whole day asking when she could come. Constantly, my wife knew what was going on. We both thought it was weird and annoying, and we tried to appease her in hopes of keeping the peace and in hopes of her being decent. I was wrong, and I should have put my foot down. And for that, I have apologized to my wife more times than I can count. Karen is shocked my parents won't accept £75,000 under asking price. A couple of years ago, my parents were looking to sell their home so they could downsize in time for my dad's retirement. In the 12 years they have owned the house, it has gone from being a bit of an unloved 3-bedroom and 1-bathroom property to a 5-bedroom and 2 bathrooms with an extension built on the side. The property is now big enough to split into 2 houses, 1 3-bedroom and 1 2-bedroom. When the estate agent came around, they valued the property at £525,000 as it wasn't a buyer's market at the time. A little less than my parents wanted, but they were keen to start looking for properties elsewhere, so agreed to put the house on the market. A couple of months went by with no real interest. There were a couple of house viewings that nothing really came from them. I don't think they even came back with an offer. And then Entitled Mom came up. Entitled Mom was looking for a large property for her and her 3 kids. For info, she was a single mom and was really keen to put a bid on my parents' home, but was unable to afford the asking price or get a mortgage. She knew this coming into viewing the home. The estate agent had informed her that because the house had been on the market and my parents were keen to move, they would likely accept a significantly lower bid. So the woman put a bid in for £450,000, the very upper limit of what she could afford. Anyway, unsurprisingly, my parents said no. The estate agent and mom were both angry at my parents, sending messages asking why they would not accept £450,000 because it was the best they would get under the circumstances, that they didn't need a 5-bedroom house when they were only using 2 bedrooms, and it was unfair of them to deny a struggling single mom with 3 kids a larger home. Again, my parents weren't willing to be bullied into selling, stood firm, and said they had no interest in selling for that price. The last straw was when the mom got in touch herself and informed my parents in no uncertain terms that their house wasn't worth the asking price, and she could easily go and buy a 2-bedroom house in another area of the city for $350,000 and stick a 3-bedroom extension on the side for less than our property cost, and that they should really consider her $450K as nobody else was going to bid more. My dad, who was speaking to her, told her to go and do exactly that, and said they would be taking the property off the market thanks to her attitude. She seemed shocked and didn't push again. My parents took the property off the market, and we are still here 2 years later. They're now looking at selling again. Hopefully they will have a better experience this time. Just wanted to clarify the bit about the £450,000 as it was so poorly written on my part. What I meant was that she couldn't afford to get a mortgage on a property worth $525K and could only afford $450K. She had an extremely large deposit though due to her divorce, which we became aware of when she made the comment about buying a cheaper house and adding an extension. Well, what would you have done in this situation? Would you have sold your house to entitled mom or not? Please let us know.
No, but I would have offered to rent to her and hike the price through the roof.
My mom told my bratty 22-year-old freeloading sister she needs to do something with her life or get out. Here's an update from yesterday's story. So my older sister isn't ruining our 4th of July party today because she's hiding in her room, pouting and making nasty posts on her Instagram because my mom yelled at her. She rode her bike somewhere earlier, and when she was gone, I showed my mom the comment section on my last post and told her and my dad to stop enabling her and start holding her accountable, or this will never stop. My mom told my sister a few hours ago in a group chat, "You are 22 years old, have no ambition or drive to do anything with your life, refuse to seek mental help, and just want to run your mouth at everyone all day long and make all of our lives miserable. This crap needs to stop. I don't have to let you live here. I'm allowing you to stay here rent-free. You should be grateful I haven't thrown you out yet because I'm about to. You need to get a job or go to school and do something with yourself. This is ridiculous. The fact that you blame everyone for your problems in life and take zero accountability for anything is disgusting. It is nobody else's fault except your own for why you have no friends. Yeah, you may have your issues with us, but so what? Nobody has perfect parents. You have to move past that. That is still no reason to treat everyone you come in contact with like dirt on the bottom of your shoe. You throw tantrums and act like a child when you don't get your way. That crap needs to stop. You are an adult. Act like it. If I'm so toxic and it's so bad here like you always tell me, why do you want to live here anyways? Nobody is forcing you to stay here. You have a car, you can leave. I'm done playing your childish, manipulative games. It's time to grow up. If you don't think you can handle acting like an adult, then maybe it's time to go back to the psych ward." She said back,
I can't be an adult. I don't know how to. Nobody ever taught me. And that's all your fault. Be a better parent. You're the reason why I am this way. Why don't you take accountability for being a bad mother? I can't leave because I have nowhere to go, but I know you want to get rid of me, and I wish I wasn't here anymore. Some mother you are.
My mom said, "This is what I'm talking about. Stop being so dramatic. This is so tiring. Nobody wants anything bad to happen to you. I want you to act like an adult and do something productive with yourself. I suggest you stop biting the hand that feeds you because you will be homeless if you continue to act like this." Your father agrees. Nobody in this house should have to walk on eggshells around you. It's time to grow up. Stop having an excuse for why you can't do something. Stop blaming others for everything and take accountability for yourself. I don't know why you think you don't have to work or do anything with yourself, but you're an adult and everybody has to work to be able to survive. We aren't going to be around forever, and we aren't going to continue to support you with the way you treat us. End of story. You have until August to find a job, and I don't want to hear the driving anxiety BS excuse either. Suck it up and get over it. We don't live near public transit, and I'm not paying for Ubers. About 10 minutes later, she came home, slammed the door, and was crying and screaming. She was literally stomping her feet and screaming insults left and right at everyone. My mom remained calm and said, "When you decide to act like an adult, then you talk to me," and went outside. She stomped up the stairs and started throwing things and slammed the door to her room. She was making threats and pulling the "woe is me" victim card. My dad yelled, "Enough already, God!" and she started screaming more. Now she's been in her room for a few hours and is refusing to come out, pouting like a kid and making nasty posts on Instagram and TikTok about how toxic and horrible my parents are to her, and they should be grateful to have her as a daughter. She made TikTok videos crying about how horrible they are. Grateful to have a 22-year-old freeloader who yells and attacks everyone every day and gets mad all the time about nothing and is just miserable and draining to be around. Yeah, no. I hope they follow through and kick her out. It's her problem that she has nowhere to go, no money and no friends. If she was smart, she would get a job, but I don't think she will. She sits around the house every day, all miserable, and starts verbally attacking people for simply even looking at her or breathing near her. It doesn't matter what you do for her or how nice you are to her. She throws it right back in your face and isn't appreciative of anything. She gets mad when anybody pressures her into doing something she doesn't want to do and comes up with every excuse under the sun for why she can't do it, including using her disorder as a crutch. Gets mad when you call her out on her excuses. Says they aren't excuses and it's the truth. It's an endless cycle. She either throws a full-blown temper tantrum or becomes manipulative and guilt trips. This happens many times a day. She won't even do her share of chores, and I get yelled at because my parents don't want to put up with arguing with her. I hope from now on they yell at her to get out if she doesn't want to do her chores or when she has tantrums. My mom said she hates being mean and feels bad, and I said she's mean as heck to all of us every day and lashes out for no reason. She deserves what she gets. She has to grow up sometime. I mean, I'm 16, and I would never in a million years act the way she does, or expect anybody to pay my way through life while I treat them like complete crap. I mean, it really isn't fair to any of us in this house to have to deal with her. I'm so happy we can have a peaceful 4th of July without having to deal with her. She ruined last night's celebration with the neighbors. Have you ever known anybody who acted like this, or not? Please let us know. Sometimes I'm glad we don't have kids, Reddit boy. Boss told me, if you don't like it, then leave. When I was younger, I worked as an engineer for a small company. The owner, who I'll call Jake, let me know before I started that I would be doing about 10 hours a day, 6 days a week for about 6 months, but that I would have to be flexible. Some days they wouldn't have work for me, and other days I'd be expected to stay a few hours late. This didn't bother me too much, as I wasn't too tight for money, and I didn't mind staying behind a few extra hours occasionally. I got to work and was told to follow instructions from the owner's brother, Steve. He was an arrogant character who always thought that he knew how to do everyone else's job better than them. We butted heads a few times, but nothing major. A few months in, I found a new job starting in a week that paid better. Later on that day, I had another disagreement with Steve. The situation was petty, but it's his response that really confused me. It ended with him screaming in my face, "If you don't do as I say, then you can leave." So I packed my stuff and left. Steve was a little confused, thinking I'd just fall in line. He was too arrogant to apologize, and I had a job lined up. Side note for people not in the UK, I was working a 0-hour contract. This means I get an hourly wage, but I'm not afforded some labor rights like a set salary, minimum work hours, or notice for dismissal. This works both ways though, so I can leave the job whenever I want with no notice. I decided to call up Jake since he had always been chill and told him what had happened. He told me that he needed me and I should just return to work. I told him unless he controls Steve and made him apologize, there was no way I was coming back. He refused, so I told him I'll send in my final timesheet. 2 weeks later and I've started my new job. I still haven't been paid for my final week, so I called Jake. He told me that, "Since you didn't give notice for leaving, you owe me for lost product of work." He said if I didn't like it, I should sue him and recommended I just take the loss and move on. This was complete BS. A couple of months go by until I finally find time to file for small claims court. Few days after sending him notice, Jake paid my money, including court fees and extra. He actually called me up apologizing for the confusion. He wanted to know when I could return to work. I had heard from one of my ex-coworkers that because of the infrequent hours, people would leave as soon as they were told they wouldn't have work the next day. Others would leave when they realized how much of a jerk Steve was. They had gone through about 7 different workers in the time I was gone and struggled to keep anyone for more than a week. I told him I'd think about it. I managed to string him along for a few weeks before he stopped calling me. The moral of the story is that if you think you're being treated unfairly, you shouldn't just put up with it. Your self-respect isn't worth compromising. Don't settle for being treated like crap, especially when you're willing to go above and beyond for them. I know you were sleeping. For context, I work night audit at an extended stay for good old Schmelton. It's the 4th of July weekend, we're sold out. All my arrivals are checked in, life is good. My coworker and I had been looking for her lost item and she had left to go to the gas station. We're still doing grab and goes for our breakfast, so I'm bopping in the kitchen at 2 a.m., checking the desk every 2 to 3 minutes. All of a sudden, I hear a banging noise. I go to investigate, and lo and behold, someone's knocking hard on our glass doors. I hurry and open the doors to save the poor glass from being rattled again, and a woman struts in. "I've been standing there at the door knocking for 20 minutes, are the first words out of her mouth. I'm taken aback. My coworker had only been gone for about 7 minutes at this point, but just give her a smile and apologize. I'm sorry that you had to wait. I was in the back making, I know you were sleeping in the back. I'm going to report you to your manager." I just blinked in shock at her, and she took that as an invitation to keep going. "I work for Schmelton, and I know you were sleeping in the back. I'm going to let them know that their night auditor was in the back sleeping." She was beginning to sound like a broken record at this point. I, thankfully, have yet to fall asleep at this job, having worked here nearly a year. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I was making breakfast boxes in the back." "No, you weren't. You were asleep." At this point, I'm more than a little frustrated. Not only was she being rude, but to insinuate that I'm a liar? That doesn't fly well with me. "Do you have any rooms?" "No, I'm all sold out, unfortunately," I reply apologetically, albeit a bit short. She rolls her eyes and rambles on again about how she's going to report me and says that she was standing there for 20 minutes knocking. "Ma'am, I checked the desk 3 minutes ago." "No, you didn't. I was knocking for 20 minutes. "Did you ring the buzzer?" Our buzzer is super loud and can be heard everywhere on the first floor. She stammers for a second. Yes, I did." At this point, she's making her way towards the door and she proceeds to ask my name so she can report me. "Sure, it's cryptic humor," I say as I give her a huge smile. She finally left and my coworker got back a minute later, asking what that girl looked like. She had seen her walking across the parking lot, and after I described her, she told me that someone matching her description had been fighting at the convenience store my worker was just at. Forced to honor contract and then asked to sign a new one. This was over 20 years ago, but I was reminded of it today and thought it would be appreciated here. When I was 16, I got my driver's license and a job delivering the newspaper. I had about 225 papers per day and 300 on Sundays. The pay was decent for a kid, and it only took about 2 hours to finish my deliveries. It was great in the summer. Then school started and it got really hard. I was sleeping in class and making mistakes. I had to wake up at 4 a.m. to deliver, and going to bed early meant I had a serious case of FOMO because my friends hung out until 8 or 9 every day. So I asked my boss if I could get out of my 6-month contract. He was super cool up until this point, and I honestly thought he had let me slide as long as he had a replacement. I was wrong. He treated me like a villain and gave me the whole speech about honoring our commitments and how I need to learn respect for myself, and if I backed out of the contract, then he'd come after me for a bunch of money in fees and penalties. Whatever, I only had 2 months left in my contract. My mom was super cool and would drive my route for me sometimes, and I went to bed earlier. About 2 weeks after the contract discussion with my boss, he stopped by my house to tell me about some changes with my route. He says, "Yeah, it'll be so great for the customers, because instead of 6 a.m., they'll get their paper by 5 a.m., so you should see an increase in happy customers. Oh, and you'll be getting a small raise, because from now on, the paper won't be delivered to your house on a pallet. Instead, you'll drive down to a town 15 minutes away and get your papers between 1:30 a.m. and 2:15 a.m. I mean, he pitched this to me like it was the greatest news ever. I reminded him that I'm in high school and I can't be waking up at 1 a.m., and I told him there's no way this is better for me. He kind of blew off my concerns, and I said, "Don, my contract says that the papers will be delivered to my house no later than 4 a.m., and that it's my responsibility to deliver them by 6 a.m. That is what I agreed to, and that is what I will do unless my contract is up." He again blew me off and said, "Oh yeah, no big deal. We'll get you a new contract with the changes, but the end date will be your original end date, so it's all good." I admit that I was not a super clever kid, but I began to see my out. I said I wasn't going to sign a new contract, and that I'd recently been taught that it's important to honor the deals we make, and how important it was that I follow through with my commitments. He could hear the sarcasm dripping off my words, and he thought he could power trip me into compliance. He got mad and threatened to fire me if I didn't sign a new contract. I actually laughed at him and said that would be great. I was a bit of a jerk to him at this point, and I told him if the papers showed up to my driveway before 4 a.m., then I'd deliver them. But if not, then I'll consider it a breach of contract, and I'd have to terminate my relationship with the newspaper. I was in a great mood and had no problems at all. It was actually my mom who was furious that they'd pulled these changes on a high school kid trying to make an honest buck. I was just glad to never deliver another paper. I guess the car is still mine then. When I was 18, in the late 90s, I had a silver AMC Spirit with powder blue interior. I didn't know crap about cars, but it was a crappy little oil dribbling thing. It had bald tires that would spin the car 360 if I didn't brake cautiously, but I loved it. Until it broke down unexpectedly, and I had to have it towed to a shop a week before I was to leave the country for 4 months. I was a kid and didn't know cars, and something major was wrong that I don't remember, but I couldn't afford to fix it. Something like $4 grand to repair. I couldn't afford it and was leaving the country for a while anyway. The mechanic said I could just leave it there and they would just deal with it or scrap it if I didn't care. Cool. I no longer have a car, but I'm leaving anyway, so who cares? I paid the bill for the work they did and left. When I got home from my many months abroad, I went through a massive stack of mail that included one letter saying that my car had been impounded, another that it had been auctioned off, and after the auction date, several parking tickets that amounted to about $400. I called the city and asked how I could be liable for parking tickets after the car was auctioned to a new owner. They said it was still in my name. The new owner hadn't changed the title and it was my responsibility. I was furious, but what could I do? The title was in my name, and they couldn't even give me the name of the person who bought it. I had to pay, or it would be sent to collections. So I'm walking to my friend's apartment a block away from my old place, and right across the street from her building, I see my car. I still have keys, so I go home and frantically grab them and go back. I get into the car and start pulling all the papers from the glove box and sort through them, looking for the new owner's name. Just then, 2 guys run up screaming I'm in their car, and what the heck do I think I'm doing? I say, "You bought it from auction and didn't change the title. You owe me $400 for the parking tickets in my name." They insist they don't owe me anything. "Not my fault you left it in your name." I smile and calmly start the engine and say, "Okay then, it's in my name, it's legally mine," and drive away. Thanks for repairing the engine. Ma'am, I'm the only manager here tonight. A few years ago, I worked at a local historic site that did day tours as well as costumed evening events, which was what I did. After a couple of years, I was trained up as a part-time manager, and after some initial anxiety, really settled into the role. At this point, I was small, 20 going on 21, and baby-faced, even with all the makeup and the costume. We had an ongoing issue with tourists littering inside and outside the curtain wall surrounding the site. We cleaned up the litter inside, but technically anything outside was owned by the county, and therefore not our responsibility, so we didn't touch it and hoped the county would actually do its job for once. Between shifts, the site would look completely deserted since we locked all doors and stayed away from windows to discourage over-eager visitors from taking pics and trying to force their way into the site. One day, as we were preparing to reopen for the evening, someone knocked on the front door, and thinking it was a coworker, I got up to let them in. Instead, I opened the door to a large bag of garbage and a very angry-looking local in a faux official high-vis vest. From her perspective, she has marched up to knock on the door of a deserted castle and has been answered by a very young woman in full historical costume. Me: "Good evening. We will reopen in about 40 minutes. Her: "You have a responsibility to clean up the litter on your site. You have to dispose of this bag for me." Me: "Did you collect that inside or outside of the curtain wall?" Her: "Outside. It's filthy out there. Now take this bag off me." Me: "Any land on the outside of the wall is owned by the county, and so I suggest you contact them. We're not responsible for it or any rubbish on it." Her: "Well, I need to speak to your manager." Me: "Okay, that would be me." "No, not you. Your real manager." "Yes, I'm the manager here tonight." "Well, I need you to leave a note for the actual manager then." "Leave a note for myself?" "No, whoever is actually working here." Me: "Ma'am, I'm literally the only one working here right now. I can take down your name and phone number if you'd like, but that bag of rubbish is not our responsibility. Have a good evening." I then closed the large, heavy door in her face with a very satisfying thud. Edit. I didn't accept the rubbish for 2 reasons. A. The county had long-term neglected the land belonging to them, and as a result, much of it was a genuine health hazard. They did cosmetic upkeep, so it looked safe, but nothing to safeguard against long-term coastal erosion, leading to multiple injuries of visitors. Accepting responsibility for any part of it was literally a slippery slope of liability and 100% not my job. I had previously been reprimanded for thoughtlessly suggesting a visitor take a walk around the site while they waited. B. As the new person, I wasn't going to set a precedent of, we accept bags of rubbish from rude people for the sake of me and my coworkers. When working with, primarily American tourists, you quickly learn the need for hard, unmovable boundaries about what is and isn't your job. How I shut down my Karen cousin's business. This happened in 2019, but it recently came up. I, 21 female, live in Canada, and I was planning a trip to my native country in 2019. My cousin, 23 at the time, asked if I could bring some items back. She explained that her father's side of the family, unknown to me, was having a wedding, and that buying cultural clothes in our native country is much cheaper than buying it here in Canada. She asked for 6 dresses and agreed to pay me for the items, plus a little extra for my troubles. I agreed, mostly on the basis that it's for family. It was a pain. I had to compromise on my own clothing, shopping, etc. in order to make space for her stuff. I made it back to Canada, and to her credit, she paid me the agreed amount. Now, here's the kicker. I was scrolling through Instagram a few days later and saw a post from her business page. She sells cerise at a slight discount relative to those sold in Canadian stores. Sure enough, the next few images were the 6 dresses that I had hauled over from 14,000 kilometers away. She called it the wedding collection and marked everything up, to the point where selling just 3 dresses would cover the full cost of everything I got, plus the inconvenience amount she provided. I saw red. She took advantage of my kindness, and even if the wedding was real, she obviously didn't use any of this stuff, and it was clear that it was premeditated. This is where I may have been the jerk. In my anger, I immediately commented on her Instagram post, telling the truth about how she had lied to me, as I had brought all of this back for her, and that I could prove it. Plenty of people DM'd me, and I provided. Within minutes, she called me and gave me an earful about how I just did over her entire family because they were depending on this income. She's got 2 adult brothers, late 20s, and her parents, early 50s. In my opinion, someone can work. I told her that I would have still helped her if she was honest with me about the business, but that lying to me and adding me to her supply chain is really crappy. The conversation ended, and so did our ties. Ever since then, her business has seen a considerable decrease in public interaction, and some still leave comments about the crap she pulled. People have thanked me for speaking up, as she had done the same to them, but they stayed quiet to preserve ties. Others have called me a jerk for destroying the business of a relative. In my opinion, the business was destroyed the moment she started slithering, and it was only a matter of time before someone spoke up. I do feel bad if I genuinely did over the rest of her family, which is why I'm wondering if I should have just shut up. So Reddit, was I the jerk for speaking the truth? Edit. Wow, this is really blowing up, and I understand that there are mixed feelings about it. Don't worry, I recognize that I may have overshot my response to the situation. I'll explain my judgment to bring it up publicly, and hopefully that helps everyone make their decisions. I can definitely see why I was rash for bringing it up publicly. I do still think that, even though it was a jerk move on my part, dealing with it privately wouldn't have gone anywhere. If I had brought it up to her first, as from her natural character, there's a big chance she could have blocked me off of the only social media that her business is on, so I couldn't have spread the message to the poor souls buying these clothes. I feel like I got very lucky that she messed up and posted it to the page that I was following. If I had brought it up to her privately, she would have realized her mistake and been more cunning the way that she went about this in the future, like making sure she blocks the transporter from the page so they have no idea. I feel like I took this one mess up and didn't let go of the chance. Also, I think the whole she would have used it as a lesson learned thing would have only really applied if she was unknowingly doing something wrong and was willing to take criticism or learn from a situation. However, seeing that she has repeatedly lied to people, and she was 23 years old at the time as well, it was clear that she was doing this with malicious intent. As in, she knew she was lying. She knew that it was wrong and still went with it. That didn't sit right with me. Edit 2. A lot of people are asking why I didn't just say no. I've detailed this a bit more in the comments, but essentially there was a massive family expectation for me to help her out because of this supposed wedding. There was a lot of pressure and guilt tripping that resulted every time I tried to argue that I needed space in my luggage. Stuff like, "Oh, you can't do this for family because you need to shop so much, right? If you can't even do this for your cousin, imagine what happens when your parents get old. Guess they'll end up in a senior home because you can't make space for them either." It gets brutal, and this kind of stuff is deeply rooted in my culture. I know that there will be some people who don't understand this, and that's fine. Just hold the assumption that I had no other choice but to agree to help her. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her cousin? Please let us know.
Definitely the cousin. She should have been honest about this from the get-go, not lie and manipulate the way she did.
Am I the jerk for banning my entitled stepson from returning home? My biological daughter, who's 12, Susan, likes to collect and read old kids' books. She's become an incredible reader. She had problems with reading and learning before, and we were advised to encourage her to read, and ever since she started reading, which she does regularly, her skills have improved. She also reads to her 2-year-old sister every night. I have a stepson who's 16, Levi, who can be a hothead sometimes. We don't have a son-dad relationship, but I respect him and he respects me, though he can act quite mean and selfish towards me and his sisters. He'd throw away stuff that belongs to us over small arguments and teases Susan for spending a lot of time reading, calling her grandma. My wife and I discussed his behavior and had conversations and agreed on punishments, but Levi would go to his dad's place whenever he causes trouble, then have his dad yell at me for wanting to discuss a suitable punishment. Then Levi comes home days later expecting me to let go of what he did every time. It's frustrating. I got a call at work from Susan saying Levi took her entire book collection and threw it all into the pool after she refused to lend him and his friends her camera for his trip. My wife helped get them out, but they were wet and some were torn. It was horrific because some of those books are hard to get and meant a lot to Susan as a part of her life. I was so mad at Levi, I came home and had a conversation with my wife to decide on a punishment, but he had already packed a small bag and went to his dad's. I asked my wife how could she let him basically run after doing this, and she said he called his dad and he came to pick him up after Susan said that I was coming home to deal with the problem. I went to his dad's house and he refused to let me see him. I told him how Levi was hiding from the consequences, and his dad tried to justify why Levi was acting out by blaming me for how me and Susan treat him. He even said he'd get the authorities involved if I ever tried to punish him because I'm not his dad and I have no right. Adding what Levi did was a reaction to my daughter being mean to him. He told me to leave because Levi won't come back home until I promise not to do anything about what he did and put it in writing. I told him Levi should stay there with him then. He's not to come back until he gets a proper punishment. His dad argued it's his mom's house too and called my wife, and she asked me to let this go and we'll figure out some way to resolve it. But I don't think it's fair for Susan to have her books ruined and Levi getting away with it. They're asking me to let it go, but this will only encourage Levi to do worse if I don't deal with it now. It's been 2 weeks, and my in-laws say I was out of line for banning Levi from coming home and are telling me to step back, but I refused. Edit. Levi's dad thinks that because I'm not his biological dad, then I have no right to punish him for whatever he does in the house. In the past, his dad caused issues when I used to take Levi's electronics that his dad bought as punishment. Then I got talked out of punishing him every time he did something unacceptable, whether to me or his sisters. I've arranged for family therapy, but Levi's dad refuses to let him go. Edit. I'd like to mention that my in-laws said that Levi is willing to apologize to Susan, and so this should be enough to get over this. But I kept saying no, and for that, I'm being considered at fault. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you just move on and let Levi get away with it, or not? Please let us know.
Mom and the ex are enabling this horrible behavior. If Mom won't agree to start working with OP on situations like this, it could be a hill worth dying on.
Happy 4th of July to you too, you selfish jerk. My husband's entitled mom is absolutely notorious for doing these things in this order. 1. Constantly criticize and guilt trip us about not visiting enough. 2. Ask us to appear at her house on a certain day. 3. We call and text that day before leaving our house to confirm arrangements. She says yes. 4. We drive the hour to her house. 5. We arrive and she's not there. Yes, at the appointed time. 6. We are expected to wait for her to get home. Sometimes it's 4 or 5 hours. Sometimes she never comes back at all. 7. During this interlude in passive-aggressive heck, sometimes she responds to us on her cell phone. Often she doesn't, and my husband wastes half his day off waiting in her empty house. 8. Sometimes she eventually comes back. Sometimes she does not. After experiencing this a few times with my husband, I now give her 20 minutes, then we leave. 9. Several hours later, when she finally arrives home and does not see us patiently waiting, she starts texting angrily about, "Why weren't you there?" and "Why didn't you call me?" We were there. We did call her. 10. She sends passive-aggressive texts for the next 4 to 10 days, absolutely infuriated that we did not spend all day waiting for her. There is a variation of this where she says she's coming to my house. It's usually her idea because, duh, I know she's about as reliable as a dead cat. In that version, we clear one of husband's days off for her. We miss out on other things we'd rather do. We cook food to feed her dinner. We clean the house and stress all day instead of relaxing. And then she either doesn't show up at all, cancels just before she was supposed to arrive, or sends a string of texts and calls, lots of texts and calls, about how her life is hard and she's busy doing things. And okay, she guesses she's not coming. She does this on my son's and husband's birthdays. She does it during the holidays. She does it on summer weekends where we all could have been doing something else. So, okay, I guess I'm partly to blame for what happened yesterday, July 4th, because I know what she's like, and in all the busy of the weekend of the 4th, we made it to fireworks, a barbecue, and 2 different birthday parties in 2 days. I forgot to have a backup plan in case Grandma bailed on our plans. More fool me. To fit her into our crammed weekend, we cut out some much-needed quiet family time / naps at our house before we went to the fireworks at 10. We had been planning this with her all week. Husband texted to confirm before leaving our house, an hour away. She said yes. We arrived, and guess what? The jerk isn't there. She decided to go out on her boat instead. It was 90+ degrees. It's 6 p.m. and we've got 4 hours to spend before fireworks. We can't wait in the heat, and I'm not going to wait all day in her house with my son, who Grandma's doing this to yet again, and who didn't get us a 4th at all last year because of lockdown. We don't have enough gas or gas money to drive home, sleep till fireworks time, and drive back. So I took him swimming. I had to buy shorts for both of us to swim in because we had on nice new clothes for Grandma's dinner she was supposed to be having for us. Thank God Walmart is cheap. It was too hot to not swim. So we're splashing around and actually having a great time. And about 3 hours later, the frantic texts and calls began. She's furious because, "Why didn't you call me?" and "Why didn't you answer my text?" and "Are you coming over to eat or not?" I made husband turn his phone off, and we ate McDonald's for dinner and went to a completely different spot to watch fireworks than we usually do. It was on the river, and the sunset over the water was absolutely beautiful, and we had tons of fun giving each other silly internet quizzes. Great memories for my son, and that's what really matters, not his super selfish grandma. Edit. Wow, thanks so much for all of the replies and support. Feeling loads better. Have you ever known someone like this that you just could never count on? If so, do you still keep in touch with them? Please let us know. That's how you ought to be honest, Reddit boy. You haven't taken me on a date in years. Angry Boomer argues with me while stealing the items I was in the middle of paying for. This happened about 1.5 years ago now, just before lockdown. I used to work in a restaurant. We had a deal with a local Aldi, supermarket chain big in Europe that had moved to Australia in recent decades, where they'd ship in ingredients for us in bulk with a slight discount, and we'd order every 2 weeks and pay 50% in advance and 50% on pickup. Since they worked on a quota system, they loved us for it. On this particular day, I was going to make our fortnightly pickup. For some context, their uniforms in Aldi are a bright blue shirt with like charcoal trousers, shorts, skirts, etc. At the restaurant I worked at, there wasn't a uniform for both kitchen staff, only some guidelines, so I was wearing a bright blue t-shirt with some patterns on it. It wasn't collared like the uniform, but still blue. So there I was chatting to the cashier, who by this point I was quite familiar with. She was pretty cute, and at the time I was working up the courage to ask her out. So yeah, long chat while she put through our massive order. Stacks of boxes of buttermilk, bags of flour, drinks, oil, etc. While we were chatting, I didn't notice the 50-year-old guy at the next checkout queue grabbing some of the boxes of Coke cans. I only noticed when the cashier pointed it out to me. So obviously, I walked over and confronted him. I had already worked 8 hours with another 6 ahead of me, so I wasn't about to take any of this BS. I asked him, "Excuse me, what do you think you're doing with those? They're paid for." To which he replied,
Bus off, kid. Paid for by who? Quit flirting with your girlfriend and get back to work.
Now, I was raised to respect my elders and all of that, but this dude was the epitome of everything wrong with that generation. So I started going off on him that I didn't work here, and if I did, I wouldn't let him in the store. Don't even remember what I said from then on, since we were both yelling. Do know it was pretty colorful though. Eventually, the manager of the branch comes to help me load up, so he can sort out the invoice was called for and had to drag us away from each other so we didn't end up in a fight. Thanks to the cashiers, it all got resolved while I went and cooled off. By the time I got back in a few minutes after, it was sorted out and I could finish paying and load up. Pretty sure my old work order is still there to this day. Never did get that cute cashier's number because of lockdown. Edit to add a bit of response. I'm absolutely not proud of this incident. It was a key turning point in getting my life turned around. High-stress working environments under inhumane conditions are horrible. I hope that anyone who's at that place or knows someone at that place who puts themselves under those conditions can hopefully see the light at the end of the tunnel and get out of there. It took me moving back to the country I was born in to get back to where I wanted to be as a person. Also, I'd like to add, I'm glad I never got her number. She didn't need the stress in her life knowing me at that time would have caused. Also, being in a romantic relationship with someone working 70 hours a week every week for the indefinite future isn't conducive to healthy quality time together. Am I the jerk for telling my mother-in-law and mother I'm not here to babysit my husband? I, 30 female, have been married to my husband for a year. We are expecting our first baby, and it's a really tricky pregnancy for me. My husband grew up as a mama's boy, but throughout our relationship, that dynamic changed and he became more independent. His mother always cooked for him, cleaned for him. Even when he was an adult, he was never required or taught how to do house chores. He learned all that through me. I'm working a really hard job since I was 25. I work at a warehouse and I always work overtime because my boss is horrible, but that's another story. My husband is working from home even before the lockdown. Now, my mother-in-law and my mom call me a bad wife for not caring for my husband properly. They claim it's my job to do the cooking and cleaning. My mom justifies my mother-in-law intervening in our household matters. She says I'm not being proper. My husband complained to my mom today that I'm too lazy, that I haven't cooked a proper meal in a week, and I only cook easy, quick meals. I'm working a 12-hour job while pregnant, and he's working from home. My job is also a 2-hour drive from the house. I'm away 14 hours a day, overworking myself, while he does nothing to help around the house. And the few times he does help, he rubs it in my face while calling me lazy and complaining to my mom and his mom. While I was at work today, my mother-in-law called me and complained about how her son had lost weight since he married me and how I'm not feeding him, and she had never let him marry me if she knew how crappy I am as his wife. I told her her son is a grown man who's fully capable of taking care of himself. Also told her to never bother me again while I'm at work, and I hung up. My mom called me a few minutes later to also complain, and I told her I'm not my husband's babysitter. I'm his wife, and if she and mother-in-law want to act like babysitters to him, then be my guest. I was having a chat with my friend from work about that, and she told me I'm the jerk because that's what I signed up for when I married him, and I should take responsibility when I'm not doing my duties the right way. She said I let things I learned online get in my mind, and I've forgotten my responsibilities, and I'm trying to rebel against my husband while also offending my mother-in-law and my mom. So, am I the jerk? Edit. Thanks for your feedback. I want to update and also comment on some things I'm seeing. First of all, I really don't appreciate the victim blaming in some comments. People blaming me for getting in a bad relationship and having a baby. You know it's not always that simple and easy. My husband worked on himself for the better when we started dating years ago. While we were dating and while we were engaged and lived together, he was always helping out. He grew up with his mama's boy mindset, but once we became more committed, he started changing his mindset and behavior and treated me as an equal. Even when his mom tried to intervene certain times, he'd put her in her place and defend me. His behavior started shifting back slowly after we got married. At first, it was more subtle, but the signs were there, though not as obvious. As time passed, I also found out that I'm pregnant and it was getting worse and worse. The cherry on top was now that he's been also complaining to my mom about how lazy I am. For many years we were equal and he never displayed that mindset since he bettered himself. It only happened after the marriage. Secondly, I talked to my sister about it. My twin sister lives in an entirely different continent and had no idea of these things. She was furious when I told her and called our mom to defend me. Then my mom called and said I'm trying to cause a rift between her and my sister because I refuse to take responsibility and accept that I messed up. She said that if I keep messing up, she won't support me and I'll end up alone, so I better watch my steps. I don't know how to feel about this and how to react, what I should do. I'm completely alone. The only person who could possibly support me is across the globe. Edit 2. To everyone asking where I'm from, if I'm non-Western, I'm a white American from Illinois. My mother-in-law is a lawyer and my mom is a school teacher. Well, who do you agree with? OP or everyone else in the story? Please let us know.
If Reddit boy tried to pull this crap on me, I'd pop his head like a balloon.
Angry man freaks out when he has to pay a ticket that I had nothing to do with. This happened a few weeks ago, but I just found this subreddit and I thought this story worked perfectly for here. I work as a tourism counselor in a small town in Canada situated near a national park. We share a building with Parks Canada so that they can provide information about the park and we can give information about the town. National Parks has an admission fee, and if you don't pay the admission fee, you receive a reminder that you need to pay. If you do not pay, then the reminder turns into a ticket, gets sent to a collection agency, and you have to pay a larger fine. I'm able to deal with these tickets at my desk, in case of it getting too busy at the park's desk. This does not mean I have anything to do with these tickets. Let the story begin. It's 5 minutes before closing and I'm getting ready to shut down when a clearly distraught man comes storming up to the door holding a ticket in his hand. He gets to the door and realizes he does not have a mask, still required in Canada at the time. He goes back to his truck to get a mask and doesn't even put it on when he enters. My desk and the Parks Canada desk are situated across the room from each other, and Parks Canada's desk is closer to the door. So typically, people will go to the Parks desk first. But of course, since I'm writing about this now, this gentleman came storming right up to my desk, yelling about his ticket. When he gets to the desk, he throws his ticket at my face, which ends up being a critical hit and leaves me at low HP. He then proceeds to let me know that he was going to throw the ticket out, but his girlfriend had convinced him to pay the fee. Keep in mind, this fee is only $10. I ask him the required questions so I can charge him the correct amount, and he starts yelling, saying, "I've been coming to this park for 15 years, and I've never had to pay an admission fee. This is BS. He asks how long we've been charging people to international parks, and I lean over so I can see the person at the park's desk who should be dealing with this lunatic and ask her how long. 1984, she says. This nice gentleman decides that me and this lady working at the park's desk are lying about this, and he gets fed up. After yelling at me a little while longer about how stupid I am and how I shouldn't be working this job, he throws a $10 bill in my face, draining the last bit of HP I had, and storms off. The woman working at the park's desk proceeded to thank me profusely for dealing with him, as she should have been the one dealing with him. The free water cup that ended up not being free. A drive-through tale. I just went and picked up some food from a chain I worked at briefly years ago, which reminded me of this story. I hated that job, but I still love their food. I was working the drive-thru when a regular customer drove up. He was a catty and rude fellow who worked at the mall next door, so I had dealt with him enough to know that he was a jerk and to not ever bother trying to give excellent customer service, because he was just not a friendly person. He gave his order, which included a cup of water. No problem, sure thing. We prepared his food, bagged it, and I started to pour his water. He got to the window and started fussing at me immediately because he needs a bigger water than that. That cup is tiny and useless, and I have to have a bigger cup. Let's talk about our cups for a moment. I assume you all know that the fountain machine is extremely inexpensive to run and is highly profitable. It costs about 4 to 7 cents to fill a cup. Drinks cost money because the cup itself can cost more than the beverage itself. Our soda cups came in small, medium, and large. Then we had a free water cup, which held about 1 cup, 230 milliliters. It's small, I won't lie, but it was free, and I get wanting to minimize food costs from a business perspective. I start explaining to him that the free water cups are this size, but he interrupts me before I can tell him that I can go ahead and give him water in one of the bigger cups, which I did on a fairly regular basis, and starts yelling at me about how stupid that is and how he will pay for a bigger cup. Malicious compliance time. But first, let's talk again about our cups. The small was big, medium was bigger, the large was a swimming pool. Seriously, it's a giant cup. It cost about $2.50. He didn't say what size he wanted, only that he'd pay for a bigger cup. I grabbed the large cup, added the cost to his total, and stared at him while the water laboriously trickled out of the spigot into his cup. The machine had very low water pressure without the carbonation, so it took a while to fill up. It was nearly full when I made a mistake. I swear I did not mean to do this, but I accidentally got the cup too close to the spigot next to the waters, and a giant splash of dark-colored cola ended up in that very nearly full water. I looked at him, said, "Oops," poured it out, and started over. The time dragged. Oh, how he glared at me. I had to try so hard not to laugh or look smug. It was awfully difficult. He was so rude and impatient, and if he hadn't have been, I would have just given him the darn water in a bigger cup, and all that time wouldn't have been wasted. Whatever, he deserved it. Have a glorious day, Reddit. Cheers. This has never happened to me before. This past Friday, 2 days ago, we had a wedding at 4 p.m. I get in at 3 p.m. and it's very quiet. The couple is local, so only a handful of rooms are reserved for it. A man comes up to the desk. Me. "Hi, can I help you?" Man. "Yes, I'd like to book a meeting room." My event sales manager was there that day, but was busy with the wedding, and this is right before, or just as it's starting, so she's occupied. I'm not gonna bother any manager for something that's not urgent when I know they're busy. I grab her business card and hand it to him. Me. "Okay, the manager in charge of that is not available at the moment, so I will give you her card and you can give her a call or email to discuss the meeting rooms." He just kinda looks at me. Man. "Oh well, I wanted to have a tour of the meeting space." Me. "Okay, we do have a wedding right now, so banquet space is not available at the moment." Man. "I just want to see the boardroom. You can't do that?" Dude, what the heck? It's a Friday night. Me. "The ballroom is being used for the wedding, and the meeting room is usually used by the wedding party to get ready. Because of that, we cannot do a tour at the moment." "You can't just let me look in?" "No, it's currently being used, and we cannot disturb the event. I apologize." He shakes his head and starts to walk away. He then turns around. Man. "You know, I'm a band member. I stay in hotels 80 to 90 days of the year, and this has never happened to me." Me. "I'm sorry about that. However, I do not have access to the rooms if they are locked, and since there is a wedding, as outsiders, we don't want to invade their privacy." He just shakes his head again and walks away. As front desk, I'm not even in charge of the banquet center and giving tours because I'm not sales. I'm also alone and not going to leave the desk for a tour anyway. And if there is a wedding, I'm not about to disrupt it. These people paid a lot of money, and I'm not about to potentially invade anyone's privacy or ruin a moment. Your situation isn't urgent, and I'm not the one you need to talk to. Like I said, the manager's busy, and I'm not going to bother her for something not urgent. Come during normal business hours if you want a tour. A Friday night with an event is not it. My coworker and housekeeping manager agreed with me. I think he was just being arrogant. Am I the jerk for wearing earplugs and headphones to sleep and study since my parents had a baby? I am a 21-year-old college student living at home again because my college campus is shut down. I have a 17-year-old brother, a 15-year-old sister, and a 13-year-old brother. So yeah, I was already sick of babies and babysitting and all that comes with that. Then this year, my parents got pregnant and had another baby. She's 3 months old now, and I'd been going a little crazy in the house already because it's noisy being around all my younger siblings. Now with a crying baby too, sleep and school have been difficult. I've started wearing foam earplugs to bed, the kind that construction workers wear to protect their hearing. Then I bought a pair of noise-canceling headphones for myself and started wearing them over the top of the foam earplugs to bed, with a couple pillows piled over my ears, and I've been sleeping a lot better. I've also started wearing the earplugs/headphone combination when I'm in classes or studying. I can hear the teachers through the headphones despite the earplugs, and I am not distracted at all. I've also been wearing them when I'm doing things like reading books or video calling my friends. And my parents and siblings have started to get upset with me, saying that I've been completely closed off from the family. I can't hear anything, like my parents calling my name. They don't like how I can't hear the baby to help out sometimes. My parents like all the siblings to help each other out, and help with the baby when we can, and say it's dangerous for me to be blocking out her crying because what if I'm the only one who could have caught something bad happening if only I was aware of my surroundings? They've also been upset with me because I've locked my door when I sleep or study, and a few times they've wanted something from me and couldn't get my attention. Like one time, some of their family friends came over, and they wanted all of the family to come have brunch with this family, which I didn't really feel comfortable with visits anyway, but they were embarrassed that they couldn't wake me. Am I the jerk for wearing earplugs and noise-canceling headphones after my parents had a surprise baby when I'm in college but studying from home? Well, what do you think? Do you agree with OP or their parents? Please let us know. Ex-wife keeps using a bank account she's not supposed to access. So, I worked at a small community bank for a time as a banker, opening and closing accounts, completing paperwork, etc. This occurred shortly after we opened our doors again after lockdown. An older gentleman, who we'll call Jim, came in on a random Monday and asked to speak with a banker. I was available and invited him into my office. Once inside, he related that he and his wife, who we'll call Karen, were going through a divorce. Jim expressed that Karen had full control over the finances to the point where he didn't even have a checkbook or a debit card for the accounts, even though one of the accounts was solely funded by his pension checks. He then informed me that he had come in to check if Karen had been writing checks off of the account, as he had a copy of a legal document she had signed stating that she would only be writing checks off of the account for necessities up until a certain date, which happened to be 3 weeks prior to Jim coming in. After ascertaining that he was whom he said he was, checking his ID, I pulled up the account in question. Since only Karen had checks for the account, we could track and view a photocopy of each written check that had been cashed. We discovered that she had continued to spend not only past the date that she was supposed to stop, but she had also been writing checks for non-essentials, also a no-no. Jim then tells me that he was suspicious that this would happen because when they began the divorce process, she had taken half of the money out of the account and was forced to put it back. I could see the transactions in the account history, so he wasn't lying. He then asks me what we can do to ensure that she cannot touch his money. I told him that since she has the checkbook for the account, taking her off of the account wouldn't guarantee she couldn't touch it. The only option would be for him to close the account and open a new account with only him on it. He decided that he wanted to do that, so we did just that. After he leaves, I continue on with my day, updating my supervisor on the situation due to how strange everything was. Well, a few hours later, Karen, whom I've never met before, storms in and demands to speak with a supervisor. My boss takes her into her office, and what I was told later was that Karen was demanding I be fired because I was talking badly about her, lie, and that I closed her checking account without calling her to get her consent. My manager explained to her that our policy with joint accounts is that either party on the account can close the account without the other party's consent. She also assured Karen that I would never talk badly about anyone, especially someone that I've never met. Mind you, my boss's office is next to mine, with extremely thin walls, so she would have been able to hear if I was talking badly about her. She ended up storming out angrily after giving me the stink eye. Keep bowling, the pro shop will fix it? Okay. I had forgotten about this until recently and thought I would share. I think it fits in here. It isn't a huge thing, but it resulted in me getting something I wanted but couldn't afford and then winning money with it. When I was younger and through my early to mid-adult years, I was an avid bowler. 200 plus average back when that actually meant you were good, before the bowling ball technology boom, which comes into play here. And I worked at the local bowling center from the time I was 16 through 21 or so, and then again later on in my early 20s, working the back, pin setters, front of the house, etc. So I knew how things operated, what could go wrong, etc. I was bowling at a different center one day. The first frame, after each shot, my ball came back with a small nick out of it. Nothing major, but yeah. So I put that ball away and brought out an old ball that I never used, but was in one of my bags. Next 2 or 3 shots, another nick each time. Fourth frame, it finally came back with a fairly large chunk taken out of it. Usually that means there is a nail or a screw that has worked its way loose and the ball is catching on it, or a piece of metal has broken near the ball lift and it's cutting into it. I take the ball up to the counter and tell the manager and show him what had happened. Now, I was only 4 frames into the game and said I would move, and he said no, They couldn't move me as they had a party coming in and no lanes available. He said just keep bowling and the pro shop will repair the ball. I asked if he was sure. He said yup, he will go in and tell them to fix it and the center would pay for it. Most pro shops are individually owned and operated. The owner rents the space from the center. This was no exception. Now, having done simple pro shop work, I know for a fact that there is no way it can be fixed if I keep bowling with it, and this keeps happening. One gouge can be repaired fairly easily as long as it's not in the track of the ball. The track is the contact point where your ball rolls down the lane, so anything in that line just can't be fixed, and it will throw off the ball as it rolls since it can't be perfectly rounded back. Depending on the core of the ball and how you throw it, the track can be 3 to 4 inches wide as the ball flares going down the lane. But massive multiple gouges all over the place? Nope. So I keep bowling. 2 or 3 games, knowing that I'm getting a new bowling ball out of this. Of course, the huge chunks keep coming out of the ball. I get finished, and there probably isn't a 2-inch by 2-inch section of the ball that isn't damaged. I take the ball into the pro shop, and the conversation goes, Pro shop guy, what the heck happened to this ball? Did it get hung up in the pin setter or something? Me, the lane I was on damaged it each time I threw it. The manager said you would fix it. Pro shop guy, why did you keep bowling? I can't fix this. Me, the manager told me to keep bowling after I showed him the first gouge. Pro shop guy then calls the manager of the center. Pro shop guy, I know you said he was bringing in a damaged ball, but did you tell him to keep bowling after you saw the damage? Manager, yeah, we couldn't move him, so I told him to just bowl out his games and you would fix it. Pro shop guy, I can't fix this. You're going to have to replace his ball. What? A bunch of arguing back and forth about why it can't be fixed. The ball I have they don't carry, etc. Fine, replace it with anything on the wall except for the Excalibur. The Excalibur was almost 50% more expensive than regular bowling balls. It was the first reactive resin ball on the market. Reactive resin is a compound that made the ball hook much more than a traditional urethane ball. It revolutionized the game and ruined it according to some, since it allowed average and below average bowlers to suddenly improve drastically due to not having to be anywhere near as accurate and took a lot of the skill from the game. But I digress. Me. So, I can pick any ball other than the Excalibur and you will pay for it? Drilling and all? Manager. Yes. Me. Okay, thanks. Manager leaves. Me. Can I have store credit for that ball on the wall, but then apply it to the Excalibur and I will pay the difference? Pro shop guy. Sure, we can do that. And proceeds to measure my hand and drills the ball, and I pay like $40 for what was then between a $150 to $200 ball that I could not have afforded at the time. Bowled my second ever 300 game with it less than a month later, and won 2 center tournaments with it, and a bunch of high game pot money during league play. That ball paid for itself 10x over in the first 2 months. Edit. This kind of blew up more than I thought it would. I was trying to reply to everyone, but it has gotten way more responses than I could have ever thought my stupid story about a bowling ball would have. So I just can't keep up. Thanks to everyone who liked my small bit of malicious compliance or replied or messaged me. Have you ever gone bowling before? And if so, do you like it or not? Please let us know. I only like bowling when I have bumpers. Am I the jerk for not paying half of my boyfriend's rent and bills? Gonna try and be brief here due to the character limit. My boyfriend, who's 26, and I, 24 female, have been dating for just over 2 years. We've never lived together. In September of 2020, my boyfriend took a job in a different city 2 hours away without asking me for my opinion or even telling me that he had applied for it. It was his dream job, and so not taking it was never an option, he said. He never asked me to move with him, but even if he had asked, I wouldn't have been able to. I live in the same town as my parents, who are both ill, and I wouldn't want to move away while they still need me. My job is also here. The city he's moving to is also nearly twice as expensive to rent in. This obviously caused some friction between us, and we nearly broke up over it, but ultimately, I agreed to visit him regularly. Since he moved, I've gone to visit him once or twice a month for a week at a time when lockdown allows it, and it's not cheap. The train to see him is about $50 each way. We don't live in the US, but that's the currency conversion rate. So I'm spending about $100 to $200 each month to see him, and I pay half of any grocery shopping we do. I also rent my own apartment back in my hometown. When I visit him, I stay at his apartment, where he lives alone and pays around $975 per month in rent. Edit, because apparently people don't get this. My job lets me work from home, so I work from his apartment. I don't take 2 weeks off of work every month. Last week, he told me that he wants me to start paying half his bills and half the rent for when I come to stay with him. Edit, I spend between 1 to 2 weeks there, so he's asked for half the bills and rent of those periods, not the total month. I told him that I wasn't okay with that for a few reasons. He's the one who chose to move to an expensive city without any of my input. I already pay $100 to $200 on train fares to see him, which he doesn't contribute to, and I have to pay for my own apartment. If I paid half his rent, my cost of living would be higher than his for a situation I didn't choose. He replied that it wasn't fair that his bills increased when I came to visit him because of the water, electricity, etc. So I told him that my train fare was the equivalent of that, and also much more expensive than just my portion of his water. So if he wanted me to pay half the bills, then he would have to pay half my train fare. This apparently wouldn't be fair, as he's not the one taking the train, so he shouldn't have to pay. At this point, I just told him that either he pays half my train fare, we both move somewhere that isn't stupidly expensive, or I stop visiting. He told me that I was being unwilling to compromise, and the atmosphere has been frosty ever since. I don't think I'm being unreasonable here, but I've spoken to a few friends about it, and the opinion seems pretty split, so I'm putting it to the Reddit hive mind. Edit. Oh wow, this blew up overnight. I didn't expect the overwhelming response to this. I'm half expecting my boyfriend to find this Reddit post now, but even if he doesn't, it looks like there really is only one way forward here. Thanks everyone for your input, advice, and judgment. Well, what do you think? Should OP be paying half of her boyfriend's bills or not? Please let us know. I think she should find a new boyfriend. Jim won't cancel me and makes me read my contract. So around July of last year, I'm coming up on the end of my contract for a big national gym chain that, let's just say, you can visit anytime. So I try and call and get directions to cancel and get a voicemail box that it's full. I call their 800 number and I'm told that only the local office can cancel me. I call my bank and ask if I can block auto debit, but because it is a check debit, they can only block a specific amount and there is a fee. I scan my contract and it says I have to cancel in writing with 30 days notice, regardless of my contract end date. I'm pretty furious at this point because the gym was closed completely due to lockdown and I was wasting money. I hadn't been too concerned while my contract was going, but now I just wanted to end my association with them. I write the letter with my membership number, email, and phone number, and send the letter certified with my fob. 2 months later, I notice I'm still being charged, and they have billed me an additional $60 for my annual access fee. Now I'm livid. I find the customer service email and explain the situation with specific dates of calls, letters, and attempted visits to the office. I ask that my membership be canceled and a refund for the past several months and the annual renewal. I receive a rather curt response saying they will start my cancellation, but I will have one more monthly charge because there is a 30-day notice. I respond asking them to read my message and see that is what I did already by mail. Apparently, the local manager has been letting mail pile up as they don't even have someone at the office part-time. No one has seen my letter. I say this to the email rep. They ask me to read my contract and state that even if I can demonstrate the letter was sent, I would still be on the hook for the 30 days and the annual fee. She says I need to read my contract if I have any questions, and I do. Turns out, near the end of this very long document, in section 20.1, it states the following: Unexpected events. We are not responsible if members cannot use our club because of an event caused by a natural force, or a road or building closure, or something similar beyond our reasonable control. If this continues for more than 30 days, then either you or we may cancel this agreement immediately by written notice. No fee will apply. So I respond with this new knowledge I have and point out that the gym had been closed 90 days prior to my original letter, and even greater than my email cancellation request. I also threaten the following if they don't refund me back to my original contract end date. 1. I will pay people I know to picket their gym. 2. I will hand out flyers telling people about this provision of their contract so others in the middle of contracts will be able to cancel without a fee. 3. I will publish an article in our local online newspaper about the trouble I have had offering advice to others. And I make it clear that I have all the documentation, including phone statements, to prove it's all true. 3 days later, I was called by a regional director with an apology and a full refund of over $240 that had been inappropriately taken and a little extra. For those wondering, I am sharing this now because I understand many people in California, where lockdown was more strict, have gone through this, and they deserve to know how not to be taken advantage of. And remember, if someone tells you to read your contract, do it.
I still would have gone to the newspaper about this. It's just wrong how some companies rip people off.
It is ridiculous that you charged us for this appetizer. This one time, an 8-top split the bill 4 ways, couples. I did the whole inform me of any discrepancies speech and billed them out. 20% all around except one couple. The guy left me less than 10%, but no sweat, I wasn't bothered. 20 minutes after, I see the cheap tipper's wife on her way back into the restaurant, all geared up for a fight. It was getting quiet at this point, just a few tables. A great audience for what was about to occur. She storms in, pulls out the bill, and indignantly points out one of the appetizers, says that it was shared, and as such, her husband should not have been charged. She says,
"It is ridiculous that we should pay for this."
I was chilled. I immediately felt a huge wave of pity for the husband who she had clearly already gone off on in the parking lot for 15 minutes. I compose myself carefully, go all smiles and ask, "So, you want me to reopen the table, refund the card, then charge the card again for a different amount, and process the table again and have us eat the cost of the app?" Her.
Yes.
Me. Well, honestly, that's ridiculous. It's a lot of work, but I think I can make this right. As I pulled out my wallet, I tried to hand it to her. Me. Seems to me like we owe you some money. So, how much do you want? Her.
What are you doing? Can't the restaurant cover it?
Me. Sure, but I'm not gonna ask my boss to cover this one. The food was good, right? She nods. And until I messed up with the bill, service was good. She nods again. Okay, so it's my mistake. This is between me and you, so let me make it right. How much do you want? $20? $40? She starts looking really uncomfortable and mugging me all of a sudden. I fan out my float. It's not a lot. I was 23 and looked it too. Go ahead. What was that app? $13 plus tax and tip? Here, take 20 for now, and you've actually made a few dollars tonight, right? Is that enough? Do you want more? You can have my whole wallet. And I politely try to give her more. Shell-shocked, she slowly takes the 20 out of my hand and walks out of the restaurant, head hanging way down. Sometimes it's very clear what people want, and sometimes giving it to them makes them see what is really happening. A grown woman is leveraging her bad attitude and emotions to win one over on some kid, some business, anything at all. I would have paid $500 easily to never see her again. I got a good deal. I still am awestruck she had the gall to take it. Third worst customer of my life. Good luck to all of my fellow servers out there. It's a wild world. P.S. I was working at a small restaurant where my antics were well documented and occasionally appreciated. I wouldn't recommend this method somewhere corporate.
$500 to never see her again? I'm gonna have to find OP and annoy them so I can make some money too.
Apartment complex rented my apartment while I still had an active lease. Arkansas has well-known laws that lean heavily on the side of the property owner, which leaves the renter pretty vulnerable to owners who want to be difficult, to say the least. Or at least they did when I lived there. I doubt much has changed since. So I move into town and find a 2-2 apartment, intending for it to be a short period of time while I scout the town and look for a more permanent place. As for paying rent, they wouldn't/couldn't take an automatic monthly check from my bank or charge my debit card monthly. It had to be a paper check from me with a 4-day late fee window. I hate writing checks, and I had the cash, so I paid out the 12-month lease all at once. I find a great place about 6 months later, thinking I'll just break my lease and pay the extra 1-month penalty and walk away from my apartment. I call and let them know I'll be moving out. Long conversation short, the way the lease is written makes you think that's how it works, when in reality, at a second or third read, I'm still liable for the entire 12-month lease, and to break the lease essentially adds a 13-month worth of rent money. Knowing that up front, why anybody would break a lease is beyond me. So at this point, I've already made the deposit on my new place when all this comes to light, so I'm stuck with two places. I tell the apartment complex I won't be moving out. Figure I'll just go ahead and let the lease run out, set the AC to 80, and open the breakers to keep costs low. I slowly move my stuff to my new place since I have plenty of time now, and in the end, I leave behind my ironing board and iron just to leave something, and I never really use them anyways. About 2 months later, I get a call from the power company asking if it's okay to transfer power into someone else's name. Shocked, I reply, absolutely not, while laughing a little on the inside. I decide to give it a day before I call the apartment complex. First thing the next morning, I get a call from the apartment complex, and with a super snarky entitled tone, I hear, "We need you to drop the power from your name so the new tenant can take over and move in." I explain that I still have an active lease on the place and can't fathom why they'd rent it out. She accuses me of abandonment, and therefore she is allowed to rent the apartment. My reply went along the lines of, "I rent that apartment with the sole intent of having somewhere to iron my clothes. Did you not see the iron and ironing board there?" She said she did, and she took it to the office to get it out of the apartment. We go back and forth on the semantics for a little. I let her know that I'm open to receiving a refund to the date on the new tenant's lease, and at that time I'd be happy to drop my name from the power. She refused, and the call ended with getting her boss's number from corporate. After mentioning to her boss that I can recognize a breach of contract when I see it, and that nowhere in the lease does it say I actually have to live there, not to mention her employee admitted to entering my apartment and stealing items of mine from inside. She quickly assured me that they are putting a check in the mail that day, refunding my money to the first of that month, and told me I could go to the office to pick up my iron and board anytime. Yes, I know they could have run up the power bill, but they'd only be able to do so much really, and a few days isn't that huge, and they didn't do it anyways. Even if they had, it would still be worth the expense, considering the refund. Have you ever had problems with a landlord? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for laughing when my pastor/boss told me that I wasn't getting paid for organizing an event? I, 23, male, started working for my church this summer. It's a fairly small one and is coming short on money and really needed the extra hands right now. I turned down an internship at an accounting firm just to work here because they've helped me through so much. I was homeless before. The pay is absolute garbage and isn't even close to minimum wage, but I'm doing it because they are basically the only family I have. I do pretty general work, cleaning up the building, but what I mainly do is budgeting their finances. They asked me and some churchgoers to help out with planning a barbecue event to celebrate the Phase 2 reopening of Ontario. They asked me to find some money within the budget to make this happen and to also help out with grilling and cooking the food. I asked my pastor how the pay would work since I usually only work during the week. He straight up told me it was for God and that I shouldn't be expected to be paid on a Sunday. So essentially, he wants me to plan the whole thing, cook like 100 patties, set up the place we're going to, and do it all for free. I literally laughed in his face because I thought he was joking. He looked at me and I realized he was being completely serious. I told him he's crazy if he thinks I'm doing all of that for free, and he told me that being paid to work for the church is already a blessing enough. I quit on the spot, and now I'm being completely ostracized by the community. How can he be doing this after all the church has given to him? Wow, really shows his faith. Like, what the heck? Okay, I do admit I'm not the most faithful person, and I get that they've helped me out so much in the past, but I need to make a living too. I live in a garbage apartment and barely have enough to stay afloat. My pastor shot me a text the other day to give me another chance. Am I the jerk, or should I just do it? I feel like I'm kind of the jerk here, but at the same time, I don't think it's fair to be doing all of that for free. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you go ahead and do all of the work for free or not? Please let us know. I think I'd call that accounting firm and see if they still have a spot for me. Am I the jerk for getting a stranger's car towed? I bought and moved into an apartment about 5 months ago. The apartment comes with a parking space at the basement level. Every apartment has an allotted parking space. There's extra parking space outside, which you have to rent in case you have an additional vehicle. I don't drive, so I don't own a car. My space has been empty. I still own it. It's included with the apartment. So the situation. My brother decided to move to the city I live in. He was moving in with me for a while until he finds his own place. I honestly want him to stay with me for longer. Lockdown was tough, and I could use his company. He owns a car, and he was going to use my space. 3 days prior to his arrival, I noticed there was a car parked in my space. I asked the security, but he didn't know who it belonged to. So I posted a photo of the car in the group chat of our apartment complex, requesting the owner to remove it. There was no reply, and the next day the car was still there. I asked again, saying that I wanted to park my car there, which would arrive the next day. No reply. 2 hours before my brother arrived, the car was still there and I had received no messages. So I sent a final message saying that I would have the car towed if it isn't removed in an hour. I got a personal message from the owner claiming that they are pregnant and their husband is working, so they won't be able to remove their car in an hour. I said that it's not my fault and that I had given them enough time before it reached this point. I didn't get a reply again, so I assumed they would have moved their car. 2 hours later, when my brother arrived, the car was still there, so I just called the towing company and had it towed. Now I'm being blasted in the group, saying what I did was not very neighborly, and that I inconvenienced a pregnant woman, and that I should apologize and pay to get their car back. So, am I the jerk? ETA 1. As I mentioned in the comments, the husband works from home. 2. It's possible that the car was there for longer than 3 days, but not longer than a week. 3. I had also placed a complaint with the management the day before I towed it. Their words, "You should contact the owner." As if I hadn't tried that already. It's a fairly new complex. The apartment management is not really efficient yet. 4. I have kept all receipts in case someone decides to involve cops, lawyers, etc. 5. Unfortunately, a couple people are still coming at me in the group chat. I sent screenshots in the chat saying that I tried everything I could. The least they could have done is message me back after I sent the first message to try and figure something out. Some people supported me after that. I left the chat saying that they are all harassing me, which is not very neighborly either. I have screenshots of all of the exchanges up until I left the chat. 6. They have their allotted parking spot where the husband's car is parked. I think they parked the wife's car in my spot because it's closer to the elevator. To be honest, I would have gladly exchanged our spots if they had asked me, since I don't drive or own a car. Last but not least, thank you to everyone who took the time to read and reply. Thank you so much for the awards. I would have loved for you guys to be my neighbors instead. Well, what would you have done in this situation? Would you have had their car towed or not? Please let us know.
Absolutely I would have. Why on earth do they feel so entitled to your parking spot? I hope you go back into that group chat and share the link to your story on Reddit. All those horrible neighbors need to realize how stupid they are.
Lady picks on new guy for double scanning items. Upon inspection, he actually missed an item and her total went up. We have this one regular who likes to pick on new team members. She goes through the newest cashier if she can and always raises a stink until the manager, me, comes by to demolish her. She always leaves grumpy, so why does she keep shopping here? Who knows? So she goes through Jay's till today. He has been here for 2 weeks and is 1 week fresh on the register. He's doing great and so far has made every effort to understand the register, and he's been pretty independent. He scans through her items, asks about the club card, offers a bag, and announces her total. She then scoffs and says, "How can it be that much?" Jay then jovially tells her that the items can add up when you're in the zone, and repeats her total. She insists he scanned something twice, and not quite having faced a customer like this before, he calls me over for backup. After listening to her claim, I dutifully check each item's tag with the register's item list to satisfy her paranoid claim, all the while explaining to Jay how to handle a double-scanned item. Wow, what a surprise, ma'am. Nothing was scanned twice. However, it looks like Jay missed an item while scanning. Your new total is up by $15. Cash or card? This woman stared at Jay and I for at least 5 full silent seconds before she started apologizing and saying her English was bad and she didn't understand what we were saying. I explained what happened a couple different ways, ensuring there was no conflict of communication, and each time repeated her heightened total. Eventually, she gave up and paid the higher amount. She sulked on out of the store, claiming we always do this crap with her. Sorry, lady. Idiot tax is real. P.S. I did discuss with Jay to be a little more careful and steady at cash going forward to make sure he doesn't miss any more items, just in case this has been a recurring problem and not a one-off. I have high hopes for him going forward. I told on my Karen coworker and got her fired. I, 30 male, have worked at my current employer for 3 years. Last year, in March of 2020, I received a promotion to project manager. In the beginning, everything went well, but in the last month, I've been getting more and more negative feedback. I did not understand what was going on or why people were becoming so negative about me. I was losing clients and several colleagues were really upset with me. I was at a loss. I started talking to my manager and my department head about following courses, getting monthly feedback to perform better. I just wanted to live up to the promotion I received. I felt like I was failing. Then a friend/colleague, 27 female, of mine came to me angry and demanded that I apologize for what I said. I was really confused and asked her why she was so upset with me. She explained she received an email where I was basically blaming her for the issues that I was dealing with. This was an email a client forwarded to her. I was at a loss and explained I never sent out an email like that and asked if she could show me. She did, and it had my name, my send address, and everything seemed like it was for me, but I never sent it. Then it clicked to me. My assistant, 39 female, has access to my email and has the ability to send as me. She's also the only one that has these rights. I was flabbergasted, and so much started to make sense. She was next in line for my job and did not receive the promotion. I did. Checked all her sent emails on her PC while she was out for lunch and saw dozens of emails sent as if it was for me. An email, still open on her screen, showed my email address and a written message to clients with misinformation, passive aggressiveness, and straight-up lies. These were sent out under my name. I made screenshots and sent them to myself, then went to my manager and the head of the department. They were angry. She was fired that same day. I was relieved and all of my colleagues were informed. I thought I was completely in the right here, but some people at work are complaining that I violated the company policy for snooping on her PC and violating her privacy. My boss and direct colleagues have my back, but the people that knew her, she has worked there since 2011 and I've only been there since 2018, say that I went too far. Apparently, she's a single mother with 2 kids and needed this job. I also need this job, and she was more than willing to sacrifice me for her benefit. I don't see how I could be in the wrong for defending myself. Maybe I'm just too close to the situation to see it. Did I go too far by going on her PC? Update. They just let me know that they are holding a meeting to clarify what exactly happened. They were catching on to people that weren't happy about her being fired and they want to quell any issues before they start taking root. I'll update again once the meeting is over. It's in 1 hour and 20 minutes from now. Update 2. Meeting took about 1.5 hours, and after that, I was in and out of talks with colleagues and other people. It was properly explained what she was doing and has done to me and the company. The attitude towards me noticeably changed in a positive direction, with a lot of people apologizing to me and explaining they've known her for years, were friends, and could not imagine her actually doing something like this. Honestly, I'm happy it ended up this way. HR and my boss really had my back here and preemptively handled to avoid any lingering negativity. Nothing but praise for them. I've requested some time off, which was approved, and I'll be home for a week starting next week. Per my request/advice, they are also going to revise, or at least look at, the company policy regarding access to other people's emails and the other security issues I've noticed. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Karen? Please let us know. I'm glad they fired Karen, and I think they should fire everyone else who agreed with her. You really shouldn't have people that stupid working for you. Jealous entitled neighbor tries to steal my package. This happened very recently, just a few hours ago, and I'm absolutely fuming in anger, so bear with me. Cast. We've got me. We've got entitled neighbor. We've got neighbor's kid, who's a good kid. And we've got the Amazon delivery dude. Context. My family and I are immigrants. My mom and siblings don't look the part, but my dad does heavily, and he's met this lady before, and we've had worse relationship conversations with her. A story for another time. On with the story. My family are tech savvy. We like to keep up with the trends and recently discovered smart home products. My parents were ecstatic. We had been looking into it and ordered the required products off Amazon. There were a lot of packages, around 15 to 20 different ones. The products all arrived at different times during the week, and the entitled neighbor and her kid just happened to notice the packages piling up outside on the daily. On the 5th day of the week, when we expected the last batch of packages, around 3 that day, I went out to collect them when I saw her walking her dog. She commented on the amount of packages that I had been receiving. It went like this. "That's a lot of packages you've been getting." Me. "Yeah, I'm aware." "Well, that's kind of fishy. What's even in those?" Me. "It's none of your business, really." "Well, it's really strange a young man like you can even afford those. I bet you're stealing money from your parents to pay for those." Me. "Again, none of your business." I grabbed the boxes and slammed the door behind me. Fast forward to today. Delivery dude leaves packages by the door. I go out to collect them. Entitled neighbor runs to the front door and attempts to take one of them. Me. "Hey, that's mine." "Not anymore, young man. You've been getting too many gifts these past few days, and you're making my kid jealous." Me. "What are you talking about? These are mine. They belong to me, and I'm keeping them." I snatch it out of her hands. "No, I'm taking all of these for my angels. You can't possibly be able to afford this." She then proceeded to smash one of the boxes. The contents were fine. "There, take your stupid package now." My dad walks out. "What's going on?" "Your kid stole my packages, and he smashed one of them too." Dad. "What are you talking about? These are our packages. We ordered these, and I saw you smashing it through the window." "Well, it's not fair that you get to have all these. My angel over there deserves something too." Dad. "I don't care. You can go buy whatever you want yourself. These are ours." Nice kid. "Mom, let's go. Let's stop bothering them." Entitled mom gives a Karen grunt. Well, I'll report you and your spoiled brat to the police for harassment." Dad points towards the outdoor cameras as well as a video doorbell. "Then we'll show them all the camera footage and let them decide." Entitled neighbor leaves in anger and defeat. Nice kid. "I am so sorry. My mom is going through a lot of mental health issues, and I assure you it won't happen again." They leave. I'm still upset by her accusations of me and my dad. We came from a tough past, and we worked hard for what we have. This is not the first time she's done something like this, and I won't be forgiving nor accepting of her actions in the future. Anyways, thanks for reading. Update. To all the comments saying to report her, please know that I am working on it. However, I personally will not be pressing charges after speaking to the other neighbors. They will be pressing full charges on assorted offenses prior to this. I will edit the post with more updates soon. Update 2. After speaking to a few neighbors, we've reported it to the police again. I won't be pressing charges, however, several neighbors are. I'll keep you updated once we receive a court date. Have you ever had a package of yours that was stolen? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. This is why we all need video doorbells, so we can post videos of the thieves on YouTube and watch them go viral. Soon-to-be brother-in-law is upset we didn't invite him to our wedding. My brother-in-law, 30, male, has never liked me, 23, female. I wish I could tell you why he doesn't like me, like a legitimate reason why he doesn't even want to see me. Whenever I asked him in person, I swear he would say things like, "You watch anime in English, not Japanese. My brother wouldn't help me with my cosplay because he wanted to spend time with you." I swear, these were his exact words. I'm not lying, trust me. I wish I were lying. I always assumed this was just a bit of jealousy, but this has gone on for 7 years and I'm starting to think it's really toxic. For some context, soon-to-be brother-in-law lives with his parents and has never gotten a real job before. He claims he's an artist and that he draws manga, which is respectable, but he doesn't earn money doing this. He tells everyone around him that I'm a problem in his family, that I stole money and action figures from him. I've never done that. It's been proven multiple times that he lied about me stealing his things and that he's lied about my friends stealing money from his wallet. Coincidentally, a friend of fiancé who came over for lunch at his parents' house. He then claimed I started a rivalry between us. He said I started treating him badly all of a sudden. I have screenshots and witnesses, my friends, family, and my fiancé's friends, who have seen how well I treated him by doing favors and paying for some of his meals and inviting him to dinners, that I never talked badly about him until he decided to make up lies about me being a thief. He also tried to separate us a few times with lies and manipulation. One example being that he suggested my fiancé have an affair with a friend of his. He told my fiancé a few years ago that if we ever had a wedding, and that he hoped that wasn't the case, that he wouldn't attend. And that, in case he did, he would go for the food. He repeated this like 4 times during our relationship. Here's where I might be the jerk. When my significant other and I decided to get married a few months ago, we automatically assumed he wouldn't want to join us. And to be honest, I wouldn't be comfortable knowing that a man who has tried to break us up multiple times has accused me of stealing and has treated me horribly as assisting our wedding. My significant other agreed, and that was our decision. Yeah, my significant other felt bad, of course, since it's his brother. But his brother let him know beforehand that he wanted nothing to do with me and didn't consider me family. So, when the time came to send out invites, my soon-to-be mother-in-law and father-in-law received their invitation through text. My soon-to-be brother-in-law goes crazy when he didn't receive his text. He called my significant other multiple times to ask him why he wasn't invited. Brother-in-law:
Why am I not invited?
Significant other: You said you didn't want to go.
I never said that.
Fiancé: You don't even like OP. You wanted us to break up for years.
So? Mom and Dad are going. You forgot she's stolen from me as well. It's the least she could do.
Yes, he brought up the stealing thing again, which was proven to be false. My significant other and I believe that he didn't even have that money in the first place. Fiancé: You told me you only wanted to be there for food, not for us.
And?
It's our wedding. We want people to support us, and you don't even like her.
I'm sure that jerk made you not invite me.
My fiancé is a sweet man. I've never seen him angry at his brother, even after his brother has done horrible things to him. He was done with his behavior. It was your own actions that made us not invite you, not her. My brother-in-law then hung up. My soon-to-be mother-in-law then called me the next day to ask me why he was not invited. I explained to her the situation. She does not agree with brother-in-law's actions and defends me. How he treated me, how he took advantage of my kindness, how he accused me of doing horrible things. She said that she understood, but that brother-in-law was my fiancé's brother, and that, like it or not, he was going to be part of the family. I'm honestly really torn. On one hand, I have the right to decide who comes to our wedding. On the other hand, soon-to-be brother-in-law is my fiancé's brother and still part of the family. I think my fiancé and I may have overreacted by not inviting him or at least giving him a chance to change his mind. Edit: I would like to clarify a few things people have pointed out. 1. My future brother-in-law is not disabled. He was taken to a doctor when he was in his teens. He was examined for about a year while doing weekly visits. The doctor did not diagnose him with anything. However, it's worth mentioning that the doctor suspected he could be suffering from depression, but this was never confirmed. 2. Does your mother-in-law support you? My future brother-in-law says he doesn't consider his mother to be his mother because, according to him, she did him over. My future mother-in-law is a sweet person who does everything she can to make him happy. She paid for everything that he wanted. I don't know what she could have possibly done to have made him feel this way about her. I know she's been telling him to get a job or at least study. He's made her cry multiple times. Well, what do you think? Should OP invite future brother-in-law to their wedding or not? Please let us know. Absolutely not. I would cut all contact with that guy. There's no reason to have people like him in your life, whether they're part of the family or not. Am I the jerk for not eating my sister's eggs? I'm 28, female, and my older sister, who's 35, Anita, has been keeping chickens for about 4 years now. Over time, it has slowly become her entire life. For example, her husband, Frank, supports their family, but she has also maintained a part-time job. 2 years ago, she quit to stay home full-time because her babies, the chickens, needed her. She didn't even do this when her actual kids, who are 15, 13, and 12, were small. She misses social events, sports games, etc. if the timing doesn't work out with her chicken schedule. Anita will also only cook with the eggs from her chickens. She insists on hosting all family events. At each one, there's a little ritual she does where she puts out 2 versions of some kind of egg dish, deviled eggs, egg salad, quiche, etc. One made with store-bought eggs and one made with her chicken's eggs, and demands that everyone eats both and casts a vote for which is better, to demonstrate how much better her eggs are. Frank does not participate because he won't eat her eggs after an incident that put him off. but everyone else is expected to. This past weekend, for the 4th, she made deviled eggs. My husband fixed me a plate of food while I was talking to my dad, which included 1 egg. The egg he grabbed happened to be from the store-bought plate. My sister quickly came over and reminded me that I needed to eat a real egg as well so I could vote. I told her no thank you, I only wanted 1 egg. I've struggled with my weight for several years and I've lost about 20 pounds in the last 9 months. I don't starve myself by any means, but I'm careful about portion control and I was only having a little of each thing so I could try the food everyone had brought. Also, I just didn't want a second egg. After repeatedly trying to make me eat a second egg, my sister finally said, "Fine, don't have one. I don't want to be blamed when you gain that weight back." I've had a few times where I've lost it and then gained it back. As we were going to leave, my sister came to me holding a large container full of her chicken's eggs and told me to take them home so I could see how much better they were, since I refused to participate in the game. I got irritated and said, "No, Anita, I don't want your eggs. I have eggs at home. We've all played along with your petty egg thing for years. I know what they taste like. Stop." She made a face and then ran upstairs to her room and began sobbing loudly enough for everyone to hear her from downstairs. Since then, I've gotten texts from my mom asking me to apologize, from my dad telling me my mom wants me to apologize, and from Anita telling me that I humiliated her in her home and that she doesn't want me around her kids because I'll turn them against her, and that it's probably my fault that Frank won't eat her eggs anymore, and then accusing me of having an affair with Frank. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister Anita? Please let us know. Something about Anita doesn't seem exactly right. Clean the quick mixer? You got it, boss. Years ago, I worked for a high-end contracting company. It was a small business, about 10 people total, including the 3 owners. 2 were brothers and were in charge of large renovations, and the 3rd was in charge of all the custom cabinetry and high-end furniture we made in the shop. He was my direct boss. I only ever interacted with the brothers occasionally, normally in the mornings and afternoon when they would come to pick up and drop off tools in the cargo van. Part of my shop duties every day included cleaning up their tools and putting them away, and I can't leave until it's done. Now, the brothers had a bad habit of never washing off the mixing stick for cement. Every day, it would come back caked in dried concrete that I'd have to spend up to an hour breaking off. I'd asked them several times to just wash it down with a hose after they used it, but it was always met with, "Oh yeah, we'll remember next time." After a few months of this, I was getting pretty frustrated. One extremely hot summer day, I was sitting on the dock of the shop waiting for them. I was caked in sweat and sawdust from making cabinets all day and was in a bad mood. They pull up and we start unloading. Lo and behold, they hadn't cleaned the stick again. The base of it was practically a complete ball. Me, seriously? What the heck? Brother 1,
Oh, yeah, sorry.
me, how hard is it to wash it off? I've asked you for months. Brother 2, it's your job to clean it. Just clean it. Cue the malicious compliance. I lifted it up, brought my arm back, and swung it as hard as I could at the side door of the cargo van. The sound of denting metal was huge. Most of the concrete blasted off of it. I handed the stick to the flabbergasted brother and said, "There, I cleaned it," before walking back into the shop. Both brothers wanted to fire me, but couldn't. The 3rd guy was my boss and refused. He told me a month later that every time he saw the dent, he laughed. They always brought it back clean afterwards. Edit. Thanks so much for the awards. I just wanted to share a funny story to everyone that I remembered while cleaning my own mixing stick this morning. I've been trying to personally write everyone that awarded me. To those asking why I didn't just bang it all the time, it's a $15 tool. If I banged it clean each day, it would be so bent that it would need to be replaced each week. That gets expensive. To those asking why I didn't have to pay for damage to the van, it was a paid-off, brutalized van already. My hourly rate was more than the cost of repair for the several months I cleaned it. Since it was already dented, another one didn't matter in the grand scheme. Am I the jerk for taking the garden with me when I moved? I, 30 female, moved to a rented flat a few years ago. Me on the top floor and below me a guy, J, 50. Both places are small, 1 bedroom, but there's a shared garden which is big but not cared for at all, super overgrown. I love gardening. I got permission from my landlord and Jay to get it looking decent so Jay and I could enjoy it. He said he's a busy guy and not interested nor uses it, so everyone was happy. I spent weeks getting it really lovely and spent the best part of 1,000 pounds on it, and that was on a budget too. Lots of plants, a veggie patch, a few small trees. The veg patch would always yield a great amount, so I was happy to share with Jay. He would buy me a case of beer once in a while as his way of payment. He even started inviting his friends over for barbecues, etc., and vice versa. We always extended the invite to each other. It was flexible and easy. Jay was always a bit flirty with me, especially after a few, but it always felt harmless. I would even hang sometimes with his friends, all male, for a beer in the garden, but still never felt funny and was happy to banter. The problem started when I got a girlfriend, S36. Jay didn't seem to vibe with her from the start. Obviously, the more serious S and I got, the more she would stay over. This really seemed to bug Jay, but she was always considerate. She wouldn't use our parking spaces, etc. I put it down to jealousy, but neither of us really cared, as we got more serious and we decided it was time to move in together. The final straw came when S was at my place alone and needed some veggies for a meal she was making. She went to go help herself. Jay was already in the garden, but when he saw her picking from the vegetables, he had a go at accusing her of stealing and disrespecting me and him as it was our, tenants only, garden. Anyway, when S left for work the next day, she sent me a pic of her car with a key scratch that read a mean word on the side. Turns out, Jay is a total jerk. He denied it and we didn't have proof. We decided to escalate the move immediately. The craziness started when I decided to move my entire garden when Jay was at work to S's place. Luckily, she has a big enough space to get everything in and a lot of plants I purposely planted so that they could be movable. I even took the vegetable patch and every darn bean. Yes, it looked a bit scrappy afterwards, but was still better than when I first arrived. I even put down grass seed so the patchy bits would go completely back to normal. It'll grow back to a totally plain, weedless lawn. My phone has erupted. Jay has called me every name under the sun and has said I have ruined his property. The landlord is also upset and has said I've ruined its value and is threatening not to return my deposit and sue. I sent before and after pics of the garden to show I had only taken my property with me, and I've kept every receipt too to prove what I spent. They're threatening me, accusing me of stealing. I'm looking into my own legal action to get my deposit back. They've not got a leg to stand on. Am I the jerk for taking my garden with me? Edit. I did message landlord prior to moving to ask if he wanted to buy the garden, but I didn't think he understood what I meant, and I didn't press it further. Also, after I took it, I did message landlord to say again he could buy it back from me at the cost of my purchase, but I would not replant it. Again, I don't think he understood. I believe Jay has told him that he bought half of the garden because he would buy me a case of beer every so often, which somehow justifies him slowly buying half off me. Suddenly, the vegetables he consumed have been forgotten. Am I the jerk for not trying to actively build a better relationship with my stepson? Last year, I, 38 male, married my wife, 40 female, after about 3 years of dating. She has 2 kids, 17 male and 15 male from her previous relationship. And going in where we were talking about tying the knot, I made it abundantly clear that I would love to have a relationship with her sons, but I'm not okay forcing anything and would just hope that the boys would accept me eventually. At first, my wife was on board with this. The reason I don't want to force the relationship is that 1, I feel that good relationships are built naturally, and 2, I was the kid, and both my mom and dad and step-parents, mom's husband and dad's husband, tried to force me to treat them as parents, and that just made everything implode when I didn't, and to this day, I do not talk to my parents and step-parents. Been about 10 years now. Well, anyways, I never tried to force anything. While my wife and I were engaged, I sat down with the boys and said, I won't try to force anything, and I'm not trying to replace your dad. He was a good guy, and I miss him too. He was a colleague at work, but unfortunately passed about 5 years back. I had met my wife in a group counseling. I was there since my fiance had passed, and we had found solace in having each other in our lives, and life's just been weird like that. Didn't even know she was my colleagues until she showed me a picture. Her sons are aware of the entire situation. But I'll be available if you do want to have more than just a cordial relationship. They agreed to this. 15 has been more open to us having a relationship, while 17 keeps it completely cordial, i.e., we're civil towards each other, and not at each other's necks. I'd still ask if he wanted to join 15 and me for whatever we were doing, but no hard feelings if not. But my wife has become increasingly more annoyed that 17 doesn't want to. The other day, my wife sat next to me and asked me to actively try to build a better relationship with 17 because it hit him especially hard when his dad passed. I said I'll ask him what he wants to do. It's his life, and I'm fine with the way things are now. She said that he's just a kid and he doesn't know what he wants, and that I should take him fishing, just the two of us, so that we can have a more family relationship. I again said I'll talk to him and ask if he wants to, but I'm not going to force it. She got angry at me and said that if you don't try, nothing will happen. I know my kids. He's secretly hurting seeing you and 15 having a good relationship. I asked if he told her that, and she said no, but still insisted I try more. It's not like I don't try. I still invite him to go ride bikes or whatever, even when 15 is busy, just the two of us. But I just take his no as a no and drop it. I think he's content with how things are right now. I just want some outside perspective. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you agree with? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Oh wow, this is a tough one. I can't wait to read the comments we get on it. Entitled Mom drops her spawn off at a daycare he's not even registered at. Backstory. From about 2018 to 2019, I worked at an after-school program with a church that also functioned as a private school. I worked mostly with the after-school kids ranging in ages from 5 to 12. I mostly worked with the older kids who were about 10 to 14. This school also had a daycare/nursery. I hardly interacted with the daycare, but sometimes I would have to sub for a teacher who was running late or couldn't come in. This story was one of those rare times I had to sub for a teacher in the daycare and just a combination of everything going wrong. I also guess this would be an r/I don't work here ladies story too. When working at the after-school program, it was a part-time gig since I was only there from about 1 in the afternoon until the last closing time, which was 6. It was nice since I could sleep in and do my schoolwork. It was a great setup, and 90% of the kids and parents were great. Hardly any of them were entitled, and not gonna lie, I miss my kids a lot. But very rarely, I would get called into work to sub for a teacher in the daycare. Now a quick note here is that the daycare was run by the church. The after-school program was run by the school. They were separate entities, but sometimes the daycare would call teachers from the after-school to sub for the daycare sometimes. It was never a problem since the daycare workers were really nice, showed us how to handle toddlers and babies. Anyway, I said yeah, I would watch this class of 4-year-olds while their teacher was at a doctor's appointment. No biggie, it shouldn't be more than an hour. Like at most daycares and my after-school program, you have to register your kid if you want them to attend daycare or the after-school program, and that way their name can be added to the roll. Also, every time you come to pick up or drop off your kid, you have to sign them in and out. The same applies to visitors. So I go in, sign in the sub list, go to the classroom, and do a quick roll call. I have a total of 8 kids. Cool beans. 2 hours go by. Their teacher is still a no-show, and I'm doing my best teaching their Bible lesson. 9:30, the kids are in their stations playing, taking a break from their reading lesson. The door opens, and the devil and her spawn come in. Like I said earlier, I have no clue who these kids are, but I do have my role. The devil, Karen, walks in, ushers in spawn. Karen comes in after her son, before I even had a chance to speak to him and ask his name. Karen turns to me and says, "Are you the teacher?" Me. No, I'm Miss Mary. I'm just subbing for Miss Lily, the regular teacher. Fine. When is she going to be back? Me. Hopefully in a little while. I don't normally work here. I work in the after-school program. I was wondering, is your son new? I don't see his name on the roll. Karen. Oh yes, we registered yesterday. Me, a little wary. Oh, okay. I'm sure he'll get added to the roll in the coming week. Karen. Okay, we'll be back around 8 to pick him up. I stop as she leaves for the door. Me. Ma'am, you can't leave your son here after 6. It's a state law. 80% sure this is true. Karen. Okay, fine. And Karen drew out fine like I just asked her to take out the garbage. As she walks out the door, Spawn is playing with the kids and getting along just fine. But part of me was just wary, like something didn't settle right with me. I grabbed the walkie-talkie and radioed the supervisor, asking if Miss Lily's class was expecting a new kid. She said no. Thankfully, I had messaged her just as Karen was walking out the door. The supervisor said to bring Spawn to the office. He was sad, but I explained we had to see Mama. I took him to the office after asking a teacher to step in while I was gone. When we got about halfway down the hall, I hear,
What do you mean my son can't be here?
"Supervisor, your son is not registered with our daycare. We cannot accept him."
But this is a daycare.
I walk in at this point with Spawn in hand, and she points to me.
Well, she let my son in the room.
"Supervisor, I know, but she is a sub, and she has to go by the roll. Your son was not on the roll, nor is he enrolled here. I'm sorry, Miss Karen, but you and your son have to leave." Spawn is upset at this point because he was getting along with some of the kids, but Karen being Karen had just started back up.
This is a daycare. You have a no discrimination policy. You have to accept my son.
"Supervisor, ma'am, you are right. We have a no discrimination policy, but you have to schedule a tour and an interview if you want to enroll your kid here. This does not mean it's a walk-in daycare. Please just leave." I'm just standing there with Spawn holding my hand. She snatches Spawn from my hand and swears,
This will not be the last time you hear from me.
The supervisor tells me to go back to the classroom and not to worry, that I made a good call about the mom. The rest of the day goes by smoothly. I go to my real job without a worry. The next day, the supervisor emailed me with an update about Karen, pretty much saying, "Hey Mary, just wanted to let you know that you did a good job yesterday handling that lady." And yes, she did call the director of the daycare trying to get us in trouble for discriminating against her because guess what? She's Italian. I mean, of all things, but I digress. The director said don't worry about anything and that you are more than welcome to sub here more often. The kids love you. Have a good rest of your day. I don't officially know what happened to Karen, but I do know from the email the director told her to shove off. Bully me into selling you my car? You picked the wrong mama bear. So, about 8 years ago, I'm selling a used car. Engine light was on, the AC needed recharging, and the fuel pump or something was out. So I go to my local, trusted sales site. Ad goes up with a few pictures and the words, "I work weird hours, so I may not be able to accept a phone call. Please only text me." Yay to working swings and midnights, right? 'Twas actually college classes, but same thing for me. So a few days in, I get a pretty standard text. "Hi, I'm Matt. Is your car still for sale?" Matt isn't his real name, but you get the idea. So text back that it is. A few standard texts about price. Why is the engine light on? Who did you get the quote from? I listed an approximate price on the repairs as quoted from my trusted mechanic, and whatnot go back and forth. The next day, I get a text from him saying, "Are you gonna take all your crap out of your car before you sell it to me? Or is that my job?" Unwarranted hostility? Really? What the heck, man? He's not the only interested party, so I text him back. "I'm not selling the car to you, so don't worry about it." I never said I would sell it to him. He never asked if he was the only interested party, and others were arranging test drives already. I didn't need him and his less than full price, partial commitment. And the crap he was complaining about is 3 textbooks and a bag that I keep clothes in. 4 things. This guy didn't like to take no for an answer and starts calling and texting about how my car's paint is peeling. True, but the pics and description said so. And how dare I ask so much? $1,000 for this car. I started replying for a time, telling him he wasn't going to get the car, that I had other interested buyers, so he didn't need to worry about it, etc. Then things got personal. This site gave you the option to link to Facebook, so you could post at both places at the same time, so I had. I didn't have the privacy settings turned down, as it was still early into Facebook's absolute reign, and I actually trusted them at the time. Silly me, I know. I hadn't anticipated that he would be able to find my info through the website's post, and find my name, my location, pictures of my family, etc. Surprise, he did. He starts to text me about how I should be ashamed of myself for saying no to him, a muscular dude. He included a picture in one text, and he wasn't the muscular, built man he claimed to be. He looked like a beanpole with 2 ab muscles, so what the heck, dude? He asked me if I even knew anything about cars. He texted that I should be lucky I was already married, or else he would come to my house. He got close, but didn't have an address, and the way my address pulls up on GPS, he never would find my apartment, thankfully. Small side info. Since I was in college at the time and needed a more flexible schedule, I worked on a school crossing guard. Every 2 weeks or so, we'd go in to sign our time cards in order to get paid. This crossing guard gig was a hire through my local PD. Not all crossing guard gigs are the same, but this one was. During one of these visits into the office, I was using my phone while I was waiting for my boss to get to me, my name being low in the alphabet. I hadn't yet blocked the dude as it hadn't been long since this started, and I was hoping it would fizzle out on its own. I didn't check my phone in class, choosing to turn it off to avoid ADHDing it the entire day, and I was often flooded with several hours of texts all at once. What I saw on my phone drove me crazy. He started texting about pictures I had posted on Facebook about my son. He had just majorly crossed the line. I didn't sell you a car, and you're taking out your rage by threatening me and my kid? Oh, heck no. Apparently, I was loud when I said what I did, because my boss stepped right over to me next and asked what was wrong. Great person, 10 for 10, would boss again. I told her that I was getting these texts from a random that tried to buy my car. I told her I was about to erase the texts and block him, but she's like, "No, wait, don't do that. Let me see your phone." So happy I didn't delete them, because this next part still makes my heart sore. I offer and she takes my phone, reading all of the things that he texted to me. She tells me to wait until she's cleared the lobby of the other crossing guards, so I do. She then tells me to follow her behind the security doors at the PD station, still having my phone. I don't know what's happening, but I liked and trusted her, so I do. I follow her back to her office where she works on her computer, referring my phone on occasion. She asks if all I have is the phone number or if I got his name too. I tell her I only got a first name and scroll to the text where he introduced himself. A semi-uncomfortable amount of time later, she hands my phone back. Something to mention, my boss isn't just administrative. I didn't know this at the time, but she's a full-on lieutenant in the local PD. She came up the ranks from patrol, moving to a position where she exclusively investigated family complaints before moving into her current desk position. Needless to say, she didn't take people threatening others lightly. Because I hadn't blocked the number, I still had the text messages with the dude's name, and she had used it to cross-search him and the phone number. Long story short, she knew exactly who he was. She says not to worry, but don't delete or respond to his texts anymore. She had it. If it got worse, I should call her or 911 as appropriate right away. Unconcerned and happy she had the situation in hand, I leave and go to class. When I'm back to the office to sign my next time card 2 weeks later, I had several unread texts from the guy. I had filtered them, so I didn't see them pop up and hadn't read them. I had sold the car for full asking price, but forgotten the entire situation. My boss tells me to wait for her again as she had something else for me to sign, and I again return to her office. She briefly explains what she had for me was an actionable complaint that she needed for me to sign from my issue 2 weeks ago. I remember everything all over again. She must see my face because she tells me not to worry and that she can tell what's going on more after I actually sign the form. So I do. Dear Reddit, this is the best situation anyone could have asked for. The phone number tied to many people, as the provider was known for cheap cell service for those who were desperate for a way to contact people, services, or employment. But with the name Matt, again fake name, she was able to find out who was messing with me. She then got a driver's license, which led to an address, which led to a police report for possible violence. Fall down the rabbit hole some more, and you find out that this dude had 5 kids by 4 different women, and he was in arrears on his child support to all of them. Hadn't been paying for over 10 years, and it was in the neighborhood of $30,000 to $50,000, if memory serves. But he somehow, just 2 weeks ago, requested a title transfer for a, new to him, quite fancy old car. I don't remember the kind, but think high-end car show and massive insurance premiums. Being so far in arrears meant that my boss was able to place a seizure order on the car so it could be sold to pay back the child support. One of the baby mamas lives in a state where fleeing child support meant that you could have a warrant issued for your arrest. When she called the interested parties in that state to see if they wanted her to execute the arrest warrant, they said yes, with much haste. That was a funny phrase, so I always remembered it. One conversation later, and my boss was able to determine that he was using the brother's social security number on his employment forms to avoid child support garnishments. This is all sorts of illegal, so she notified this guy's HR department so it could be corrected. They informed her that he would be fired for fraudulently submitting false documents. She then told me that about 4 days ago, she had executed the warrant on the dude for felony abandonment, and that the state he was to be held for was already en route to pick him up. It carried an 8 to 12 year sentence, and he still had to pay back his child support. I could have dealt with the comment. I could have dealt with the not taking no for an answer, even dealt with the stalking a little bit. But when you think it's okay to bring my kid into the picture, you done crossed the line. If you would have stopped at no, you wouldn't be in jail right now. My boss really was the best. I cried when I left that job. She retired a few years back, and I sent her a huge cake. She remembered me and called to thank me. She was fantastic and never gave me a reason to doubt her support. Have you ever dealt with someone who wouldn't take no for an answer? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
Oh, I just love it when the bad guy gets what they deserve.
Am I the jerk for how I handled my creepy coworker? I have a coworker, I'll call him Keith, who I feel like is starting to cross a line with me. He's always talking about his wife and how awful she is, and I'm always tuning him out or telling him I don't want to hear it because it sounds like some midlife crisis crap where he's trying to hit on me. Last week, he asked me to happy hour. I said maybe. Is he getting a group together? He was super vague and dodged the question, saying,
We'll see who comes out. You never know with these things, and people having other stuff going on.
I asked if he invited anyone else. My spidey senses were tingling. And he said, yeah, some of the guys on the team. I said, cool. Who? He said that he just asked around. I was getting a super strong feeling he was trying to pretend he tried to plan a group event. But what a coincidence, only I showed up. I could have said, no, I wasn't interested, but I honestly was feeling a little petty and wanted to catch him out in a lie. So I said that I didn't know about going out. It would be fun to hang out with the group, but my dog was feeling sick and I didn't feel good leaving him alone that long. I then went around to pretty much the whole team and was like, yo, there's a happy hour at Patty's, 5 p.m. You coming? Keith's planning it. Did you already hear about it from him? And got like 15 people saying Keith didn't mention anything to them yet. About 10 of them were down to hang out. I texted Keith to say that my dog seemed okay. My roommate was taking care of him, so I was down to go to happy hour. So at 5, a whole group made their way to the bar, Keith included. I started to drive to the bar, and then I got a text from my roommate that my dog threw up in the bed, and I had to go deal with it. A white lie. I guess Keith had to go out with a bunch of guys we work with who thought he had organized the happy hour. I know he isn't the type to want to hang out with coworkers outside of work, so I feel like that was a bit of karma for trying to be two-faced with me. Ended up having to do the thing he was pretending to be doing. He told me the day later that it was rude of me to invite an additional number of people and then dip out. I said, sorry, I thought it was a team happy hour like he was saying. Anyway, I couldn't make it because my dog was sick. Am I the jerk for being petty instead of direct? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Keith? Please let us know.
Sounds like Keith got just what he deserved. There are better ways to deal with a midlife crisis, like buying an expensive convertible sports car you don't really need.
If I don't get help, you don't get help either. Many years ago, I worked at a large movie theater at a mall as an assistant manager. We were always busy and had full staffing levels on the weekends, but to make up for the payroll costs, off-peak days and hours were staffed extremely low. 1 staff member per area usually. We always received our inventory shipments on a weekday and in the morning/early afternoon, but they were always such large shipments that my general manager, a sensible fellow, would usually have an extra staff member or two scheduled to help put the massive amounts of candy, popcorn bags, tubs, drink cups, 35-pound bags of popcorn kernels, cleaning supplies, and whatnot away. Even with the help, this could take a few hours. There would always be at least 4 or 5 massive pallets delivered. Well, on one usual inventory day, there was a slight problem. The week before, my GM went on vacation and the assistant GM, a total jerk, made the schedule. Ever the stingy jerk, he decided it was not worth a few extra payroll hours to schedule any extra people on that day to help out with a shipment. Furthermore, on that day, he had scheduled himself and I as the 2 managers on duty during that shift. And since he was above such petty things as actually doing any work at all other than sitting in the office reading sports scores on the computer, it was up to me to get the entire order put away, cover breaks for each lone staff member working in the box and concessions and usher, and deal with any customer complaints and issues should any arise. I was, well, I still am, a very small, lightweight female. Lifting a couple thousand pounds of boxes and bags in a short time period, while also tasked with the aforementioned responsibilities completely solo, just didn't seem logical to me. So I made my way back to the office, where Assistant General Jerkface was reading golf scores or something. I said, "Hey, I could really use some help putting the order away. I can't get all of this done before the end of my shift." The jerk scoffed, gives me a sarcastic smile, and goes,
I think you can handle it by yourself.
I say, "Well, I would really appreciate you covering the breaks for the staff while I work on this then. I really can't do all of this by myself before the end of my shift." Again, the jerk gives me that same grin and goes,
Well, if I were working alone, I know I would be able to do it all by myself. So you should be able to do it as well. Figure it out.
"Fine, forget you." So I go back out there and just start hauling butt to get things put away. In fact, I'm furious. And when I'm furious, I can be a little careless. I'm about halfway through the initial third of the quarter of a tenth of the first large pallet of BS I'm tasked with handling when I realized something that infuriated me even more. Jerk Assistant GM was supposed to be the person who prepped the area we stored candy in the day before. What this means, in theory, is that the person responsible for that goes into the candy storage area, rotates all of the stock from the last week to the front left side of the shelves so we can stock the new stuff towards the back right, so we don't overlook a case of cookie dough bites, and then it goes bad, gets our customers sick, and we get sued, or something like that. Anyways, since the jerk did not do this, I now not only have to put this crap away myself, I'm also responsible for rotating the existing boxes on the shelves in a neat stack on the left before I can even think about unloading this pile of overpriced diabetes chow. So now, I'm just a whirlwind of candy shuffling fury. As fast and carelessly as possible, I'm just punching boxes into their rightful positions without any regard to their delicate innards. I don't know if M&Ms can bruise, but some of them probably did that day. My rage was actually helping me out quite a bit, until I got to the Twizzlers. For you lucky souls that have never stocked boxes of bulk candy before, most of them are reasonably sized at about 5 to 10 pounds a box. So while there are a lot of them, they're reasonably manageable. This is not the case with Twizzlers. Our Twizzlers packages were full-sized, and there are about 60 of them in a box. I shove my arm in to grab the first of the massive box of twisty sugar ropes that's on the right side that needs to be on the left side, and completely rip off a good-sized chunk of my arm near the elbow on the metal shelf bracket. Well, I was told before that bleeding on the boxes was generally frowned upon, so I made my way back to the office to interrupt Jerky McGolf scores and show him my ouchie arm. Despite his failings in literally every other area in his life, he does realize that workplace injuries should be taken seriously because potential lawsuits and money and liability and whatnot, and immediately located a clinic that we had some sort of professional dealings with that would check out my arm and give me a tetanus shot and all that jazz at no cost to myself. I was pretty hysterical at this point, although not, as he thought, over my injury, and he assumed I was upset about having to lose hours. I was hourly, you see, and assured me that I would receive pay for the full day at work. So I got to the clinic, got patched up, got my tetanus shot, and was home about 3 hours prior to the end of my shift while I had the knowledge that the jerk now had to go rotate the stock, get the order put away, cover breaks, and handle people complaining that Saw 3 wasn't the intellectual cinematic masterpiece that they thought it would be, and could they pretty please get their money back even though they watched the whole thing, while I get to sit at home receiving full pay for the rest of the day. Worth that scar though, in my opinion. Am I the jerk for driving away from a hiking trip with my boss's husband? I, 26, female, recently moved to a new city after getting a job. I've been having a hard time making friends. Most of the people I know so far are from work. We all get along, but we aren't close, more like acquaintances. My boss, Sue, has been very welcoming since I moved here. She often has all of us over for dinner and loves to celebrate whenever there's a birthday, a baby, or a big milestone in our team. Last week, I was out to lunch with Sue and a few other coworkers when Sue told me about a hiking group her husband runs and how it's a great way to meet people. She said he would be leading a hike on Monday, this past Monday, and the whole team should go since it's a holiday. Monday was my birthday, but I hadn't told anyone and I didn't have any other plans, so I said yes to the hike. I drove to the meeting spot on Monday, which was kind of remote and up in the hills. Nobody was there when I arrived besides Sue's husband, Greg. I asked him where everyone was. He said no one else could make it and it would just be us on the hike. It was early morning and still dark, and I didn't know Greg other than seeing him passing at Sue's house. I knew he was probably a nice guy, but I felt nervous going on a hike in the dark, remote area with a guy who was practically a stranger. I called Sue, and she told me that something came up with her kid, but I should go. It'll be worth it for the view, etc. I still felt unsettled and asked Greg if we could just postpone for a day when the others could come. He got frustrated, saying it's no big deal and we should hurry up and start. I was more nervous at that point and thanked him before saying I was going to head home. That upset him even more, and he came towards me and asked if I thought he was some sort of a criminal. He seemed angry, so I panicked and jumped in the car, saying that I had to go. He kept yelling at me to stop as I drove away. I was on the way home, terrified, when Sue called me. Apparently, the hiking trip was a cover for a surprise birthday party the team was throwing me at the lookout point. She found out about my birthday through Facebook, and Greg was just supposed to lead me there. I felt terrible and offered to drive back, but Sue was upset and said I ruined it for everyone and made Greg feel like a creeper. Now the environment at work is tense. Sue and my coworkers only talk to me when they need something, and they didn't invite me to team lunch. I feel like I really messed up. Fiancé demands a more expensive engagement ring. My fiancé, Kate, who's 33, and I, 35, male, got engaged last summer. Wedding is set for November. My friend Aaron, who's 35, male, just proposed to his girlfriend Amber, who's 30, at the end of June. We had a 4th of July party at their house Monday, and everything was going great. At the party, Kate and the other woman there asked to see the ring. There were a lot of oohs and ahs amongst the group when Kate asked what kind of stones were in the ring. Amber said that the band had 40 diamonds and the center was a 1-carat diamond. 41 diamonds and 3 carats total, technically a solitaire with an elaborate band and no halo. Kate said that wasn't possible on their budget. Amber looked at her ring and said it looked like diamonds to her, but Kate brought up how their budget was $1,500 like ours and was for Kate's ring, and Aaron must have been cheated. Kate's ring is a 1/2-carat solitaire. I was confused too, as I and another friend went with him to pick out the ring since our budgets were similar, and I noticed immediately that it was not the ring he picked out with us, though I said nothing. Aaron told Kate he spent $6,000 on the ring, and he never intended to stay in budget since he could afford much more. He said Amber deserved the best and wanted to surprise her with both the proposal and the ring. Aaron took out the card that came with the ring with the specs from his wallet, confirming they're diamonds. Aaron said he only brought us to make sure it was a surprise and there was no way Amber would find out what he was up to. Amber is very money conscious, so Aaron explained he's been saving since their 3rd date for the ring and he paid in cash. They've been together for 2 years. Fast forward a couple of hours. Kate and I are driving home when she mentioned the ring and how romantic Aaron was to save for a special ring. She asked why I didn't do what Aaron did. Oh goodness. She asked why I didn't do what Aaron did, which is get her something I knew she'd love and not be so focused on budgets. Personally, I don't like large flashy diamond rings. They look gaudy, and I think they're a waste of money. I told her she was envious that Amber's ring is twice the size of hers and flashy, but it's not a big deal. Kate said she should get a different ring that shows how I feel. I said no, that the ring she has already does that and was in our budget we agreed on. She said she's envious, not of the ring, but that Amber is with someone that is more focused on her personal value and not budgets. I snapped and said that she should try to find someone like Aaron then, since my ring wasn't good enough. It's been frosty in the house since. I'm not sure what to do here. She's never mentioned the size of her ring until now, and this has been our biggest disagreement in the 4 years we've been together. I can count on one hand how many fights we've had. I feel like I should get her another ring, but I'm also angry that she feels the one I bought is no longer good enough. Am I the jerk for my response to Kate and my refusing to get her a new ring? Well, what do you think? Should OP get Kate a new ring or not? Please let us know. I think he should find a new girlfriend, to be honest, but what do I know? I'm just a Karen. Am I the jerk for asking my brother to not bring his wife to family events? I come from a very Orthodox family. There are certain rules for how we're supposed to act, like not wearing revealing clothes, even jeans and shorts. A few years back, I started attending this language class. My parents agreed very reluctantly and became friends with a girl there. Introduced her to my older brother, male 25, who would pick me up from class. Long story short, they fell in love and eloped. My mother was devastated.
She cried for days and blamed me for introducing her to my brother. My brother moved into an apartment pretty close to ours, but maintained his distance from us and gradually cut contact. Until this year, when they finally decided to reconcile. I thought they would tone things down and slowly get my parents to approve of their marriage. It was naive of me to think so. My sister-in-law wears short pants and skirts for every family event. She talks about moving to Europe, never having kids, and everything else that my mother cannot fathom. She has the luxury of saying all this and running back to the safety of her house. I'm the one who has to sit through the aftermath. The minute she leaves, my parents start yelling about how much shame and bad luck she's gonna bring our family. They also never forget to point out that none of this would have happened if I hadn't gone to that language class. I have repeatedly asked my sister-in-law to just wear normal clothes for a few hours, but she refuses to. Recently, my older sister had a baby, and there's plenty of ceremonies that are to be performed. These ceremonies are huge, and most of my relatives will be attending it. I can only imagine the fights that will start at home. My brother called to ask me if there was something he could do, and I straight up told him not to show up, or to show up without his wife. He called me a jerk and said that I was just like our parents. I know that the only person in the wrong here are my parents, but I know them, and I know they won't change. And I don't think wearing different sets of clothes for a few hours is a big deal. And if it is, then they can just not attend. So, I think I'm not the jerk, but maybe I just can't see it. So tell me, Reddit. Edit. I live in a South Asian country. Definitely do not have the resources or the support to leave my family. At least not now. I have no issues with what my sister-in-law wears. If I did, I would never have befriended her, which I did before she married my brother. When I said she talks about being child-free and moving to Europe, far away from my parents, I did not mean she should not do so. What I was trying to say is that she is aware that this will upset my parents and will still bring it up in front of them. I'm guessing most of the comments are from people in the West. It might be easy to walk away from your family where you live. Family is everything you have here. However, I asked for judgment from an impartial source, so I will accept whatever verdict I get. Final update. I thought I mentioned my age in the post, but apparently I didn't. I'll be turning 17 this year, so no, I can't just leave. Leaving would mean running away, and they'll just call the cops to bring me back. So there's no point. My brother doesn't see anything wrong with how my parents treat me. His progress only starts and ends with his wife. He will definitely not let me move in with him. Some of you sent really nice messages, but there's also a lot of mean ones, so I'm sorry, but I'm just not gonna open any more of them. Since most of the people have voted that I'm the jerk, I'm just gonna accept that. I did ask for an unbiased opinion. For an update, nothing much has really changed in the positive direction. My brother was really annoyed with the way I spoke to him yesterday since I'm younger than him, so he called up my mother to complain about me, which just ended up with them having more arguments. There is a silver lining though. I called my older sister and told her what happened, and she's asked me to come stay with her for a week under the guise of helping prepare for the ceremony. So hopefully they'll forget about this by the time we meet next. I did reach out to my sister-in-law, but she hasn't responded, which I guess is fair. I did send her an apology. Also, I want to apologize to all the people from the West for implying that family isn't as important to you people. I was very angry when I wrote that. I had a whole night to think about it, and that was definitely wrong of me. So, I'm sorry. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you ask your sister-in-law to wear different clothes or not? Please let us know. Talk about entitled parents. Am I the jerk for picking out peas for my dinner in front of my mom's boss? Edit. I'm autistic and I don't like peas because of the texture that makes me feel bad. I'm dependent on my mom because I'm not able to live on my own yet, but I'm learning. I didn't realize that could change the context of the story until it was pointed out to me. Thank you for your insight so far. Hello. I'm 20 and I live with my mom, who's 48, in the UK. Mom hosted a mini dinner for some colleagues. Her husband has a big house and a garden where we sat. I don't like dinners and eating with strangers, but I had to sit with them, which was a little bit stupid. They made food I don't like. It had peas in it, and I don't like peas. My mom knows this, but I wasn't allowed to eat other stuff because it would be making a fuss, and there was no time to make other things. I was not allowed to make something myself either. I picked out the peas from my dinner to feed to the ducks at the pond close to my stepdad's house because I know ducks like peas. They shouldn't eat bread because that's bad for them. I put all the peas in a little cup with my spoon. Mom's boss was sitting opposite of me and asked what I was doing, so I told him. He was silent for a while,
and then said okay. We didn't talk a lot, but sometimes he asked me a question and I answered. At the end, he gave me some more peas that he had removed from his own food. I asked if he also didn't like peas, and he said, I do like peas, but I also like ducks, so they can have my peas, which I think was nice of him. He also gave me 5 pounds to buy ice cream for myself when I feed the ducks, which was also very nice of him. We didn't talk much, but I think he was a nice man and I liked him. But when he left, he talked to my mom, and she came to me and she was angry or upset. She asked me if I spent all dinner picking out peas, and I said no. I also ate the pasta bits, but there were a lot of peas to pick out. She asked why I did that in front of everyone, because that's very rude to do during a dinner. It shows you do not like the food and are not interested in the guest. This is exactly what I thought, so that's true. Mom said that she understood that it's not nice, but if she says it's important, like she did before dinner, then it really is important, and I should keep that in mind. They were people who deserved respect and who feel put off by others touching their food strangely or not engaging with them. Mom's boss told her before he left that maybe next time I should eat something else because I didn't eat much. I'm not a big eater, so it's kind of normal for me, but he doesn't know that, of course. But the point is that he said something negative to her that could have been avoided if I didn't pick the peas out of my food. I didn't think about this. I understand that that is not a good thing, but my mom was genuinely upset, and I think that's a little bit much. It's just a dinner, and he was a nice man. I don't think he's angry at her. I was just wondering if I'm not seeing something important here that makes me the jerk for doing this. Am I the jerk? Update. Some comments said to talk about it with my mom. I did, and it went very well. She said she's sorry and that it was not my fault. She explained to me how it went, and I will try to tell it as short as possible. Mom was very stressed because she never hosts dinners. She wanted her colleagues to like it. They requested the recipe. She forgot I don't eat peas, but she was too busy with her colleagues. She wanted me to eat with them because at her colleague's house, his kids also ate with them. She didn't want to make a fuss about this because sometimes I'm rude when people ask about it. She said her head was all over the place all evening. I said to her that that's why I could have made my own food. She said that was difficult because there was no time for that. I didn't realize because I'm not good with time awareness. I asked her to communicate with me next time and to be more clear about what I can or can't do. She said she will and said I can help cook next time too. Almost every comment said that her boss was nice. He probably wasn't angry or upset with her. I told this to my mom. She said sorry to me again because she wasn't upset at me at all. She was embarrassed because she tried to get me to behave normally, and she shouldn't have done that. She took it out on me on a whim. I also said sorry because I didn't realize that it could have been important for her work status. I just thought they were like friends. She said it was okay because I didn't make a big fuss and I didn't get loud or walk away. She's proud of me for staying at the table and also thinking about the ducks. We concluded that we both learned things. I learned things because I now know more about work dinners and manners. She learned things because she now knows to communicate and explain more to me to avoid stress. Last thing is that I fed the ducks the peas. I think they were happy about it. The thing with ducks is that they don't say that to you, of course. I got an ice cream with 2 scoops at the pond. I also got one for my mom because I had money left. It was a little bit melted when I came home because it was 5 minutes walking, but she still liked it, and she said I was amazing. I don't work here, but that's my daughter. She does. Around 5 years ago, my eldest daughter used to work for one of the local grocery stores as a cashier. I'm not trying to brag here, but my daughter is beautiful. She was going to be a model, but she has a heart condition, and the stress of the job would have been too much for her. Even after 3 kids, she's only 52 kilos, 115 pounds for the US, at 1.5 meters tall, 5'8", with long dark hair, almost black but not quite, and eyes so dark it is hard to see her pupils unless the light hits her eyes just right. People involved were, no real names, my daughter, Annie, the mouthy idiot, and the store manager, and a tiny part, me. One day, as I was done shopping and waiting in line, there were 2 people behind the one at the cash register my daughter is working at. By this time, I can see the look on her face and know she's getting a hard time. I only had a few items, maybe 3 or 4, so I asked the lady ahead of me if she minded me skipping ahead. She moved over and let me pass without a fuss. I thanked her, then turned my attention to my daughter and this guy at her till, ready to go into protective dad mode. At this time, I was about to say something to this mouthy idiot. He had been hitting on Annie and flirting, and when that didn't work, he started commenting on her body. That's when I moved forward in the line. I'm glad she got her mouth from her mother, because she let this guy have it. She told him how disgusting he is, how he's an embarrassment to all real men, and many other things only those who worked in retail have to put up with. This mouthy idiot could have left at any time, but stood there like a kid getting scolded from a teacher in an elementary school and took it all. Annie did not raise her voice, but leaned over the pin pad for a debit card, looking him square in the eyes the entire time. At this time, her manager came over to find out what was going on. So Annie repeats many of the things this guy had said to her, and the manager is in the process of telling this mouthy idiot he's no longer welcome in this store. I leaned over and said quietly in his ear, "I can't wait to welcome you to the parking lot." I'm not a small man, but I'm no giant either. I'm 1.8 meters tall, 6 foot 3 inches, and 102 kilos, 225 pounds, but he was only up to my shoulders tall and nearly half my weight. I didn't seem to scare him at first because he squared up to me, looking up, and asked, "Who are you? Security?" Annie spoke before I had the chance and said so sweetly, "Hi, Daddy." I said, "Hi, baby." At this, the entire front of the store, workers and customers alike, watched as this mouthy idiot ran out of the store. The funniest part was he left all of his groceries and his debit card behind. He had to come back for it sometime later. Annie never got in any trouble, not even a talking to. The manager was 100% on her side, and mouthy idiot was banned for a year. I could mention here that the manager and Annie are best friends outside of work and take vacations together, both families. But is that really important? I am proud to have helped raise a strong woman and a force to be trifled with. Would I be the jerk for suing my neighbor for filming me and posting it? I, 22 male, am a professional dancer. I'm visiting my parents for a few weeks, and they have a small training room for me in the basement. So I was there, trained some stuff for the upcoming show, beginning when restrictions let it begin. And later that day, I scrolled through Instagram. On Instagram, I've seen that my neighbor, who's 20, filmed me and posted it onto her story. It was not a short clip. It was a whole bunch of stuff, about 3 minutes worth of clips. I texted her and told her to please delete the clips, and she said the dancing was really good and that she would not delete it, as many of her followers, over 8,000, love it, and she offered me to put a shout out into her story. What the heck? I got a private Instagram account with 54 followers and do not care. So first of all, I don't even know her. We added on Instagram after a short chat and never talked again. I live 500 miles away. The thing is, now that I feel violated in my privacy. I mean, I have no problem with getting seen or filmed, but not at home. And for me, an even more important fact, on the video, there's some tricks and steps and effects that should not be seen until the great live reveal on stage. I'm thinking about suing her for this, as I do not feel comfortable with getting my private stuff posted. Would I be the jerk? Update. I reached out to her again and told her that we will sue her. She just brushed it off, saying that the story will be gone in 2 hours anyways, so just forget it. I screen recorded the whole story, plus the direct messages, and reported it to Instagram, who have not done anything yet. I had a Zoom call with my crew and our manager after that. The manager told me we will sue her, as some of the routines, etc. are likely to be stolen. I don't know what to expect from that whole thing, but yeah, at least she might take a lesson from it, I guess. Our lawyers have done pretty good jobs so far. Thanks for all the answers. Bless you guys, for real. Edit after reading some of the answers. I have no evidence that she was in our garden while filming. Between the road and the window is a garden which is about 5 meters bright. She either zoomed straight into the window with a perfect angle and filmed it that way, which I doubt, or she went into the garden, which makes more sense as the quality of the recording was pretty good and stable. The window is pretty small as well. And for those wondering, I live in Austria, and as far as I know, you are not allowed to post footage online without consent of the people portrayed. If the focus is on the landscape and there are people passing by it, it's discussable. But she explicitly filmed me on my training session, nothing else. It really creeps me out that someone watched me this whole time and I didn't realize. I'm looking forward to returning to my city and training in my studio again. Edit 2. I will post an update in a few days. This blew up overnight, and I will try to read through everything and answer open questions. So far, and again, thank you for all of your answers and ideas. I really appreciate all of you. Entitled Mom wanted to move in with us, so I left. This took place the summer of 2013. My girlfriend at the time was living in her own place, and her mom, Entitled Mom, wanted to move back from a 4.5-hour drive away. We had gone down and grabbed Entitled Mom and her dog, who was a yippy kind of a dog.
He barked every morning that I got up to get ready for work. She said that she was going to sleep in the living room with her dog on her lap until her husband could get their place. The story went that he had it in the works with a renter and was just waiting for some paperwork. After a week, entitled mom found out her husband had been lying about the new house and said she would move in with us. Reluctantly, I agreed. After learning they all owed money to a truck rental place, they asked me to get one. Again, reluctantly, I agreed. The truck rental was for one trip from her place back home. Remember this. I recruited a buddy and a brother to help move her back to our place. It wouldn't have been so bad had it not been for the 4.5-hour drive into winding roads with a cliffside to one side. I drove my car down to the rental place, and then they drove it to her old place as I drove the truck. We went early to have as much daylight as possible. Well, when we arrived, we found that her place was in complete disarray. As we moved things, we found that entitled mom's dog and other animals had taken dumps everywhere. We found boxes that were literally full with doggy doo that she for some reason wanted to keep. After working for 4 hours, we needed to take a break. Mind you, only I was the professional mover, as I had 2 years of furniture delivery at the time. Entitled mom complained the entire time that we were resting and that we weren't moving fast enough. After we finally packed the truck as much as we could, I found that my car's battery had been drained due to someone leaving the lights on. At that point, it was too late to get a battery or jump cables from anywhere, and the closest Walmart was an hour drive in the opposite direction that we had to go. So I had to call off work for the next day for that. On top of that, we left out around 3 or 4 a.m. We had to put my brother and buddy in the back of the truck for the excruciating drive back, since there was no way I was leaving them alone for essentially a whole day by themselves in a highly wooded area in a house filled with crap with nothing to sleep on. About 15 to 20 minutes left in the trip, we had to stop and get gas. And after the refuel, the battery on the truck had died. Called the company for them to come jump it. When opening the back of the truck to check on the guys, a statue fell out of the back of the truck and shattered. Entitled mom lost her mind and told the two of them to just start walking home. They didn't even care and started their walk back. Luckily, my dad was able to get them since it wasn't that far away. At this point, I was sleep deprived from various things on top of having worked the day before we left and having left early the previous day for the move. Exhausted and frustrated, I just wanted to sleep when I got home before unloading the truck. Upon returning home, I got a whole hour in before entitled mom demanded we start to unpack the truck. After hours of demands, I had enough and left and walked to my dad's. Girlfriend and entitled mom both tried calling me for hours, but I had my phone off. When they finally got a hold of me, I told them that we could go grab my car and come back home, but entitled mom said she needed to get more stuff. The truck rental company only had us with one trip from her town to ours, but we added enough miles to add $300+ to the order. My friend and brother were out. I wasn't going to ask them to do anything after experiencing that. Instead, entitled mom's nephew hopped on to help. We went down, grabbed more stuff, and entitled mom said she needed to get back to do a pool tournament. We jumped my car, she drove it back, and a few hours later we left too. Girlfriend, nephew, and myself, with me having about 3 hours total sleep in the last 3 or 4 days. Girlfriend didn't drive and decided to sleep while we drove back. Girlfriend helped keep me awake so we didn't go off the cliffside. After countless hours, I was fed up, emptied the truck, and took it to our town's rental place. Girlfriend and I had fought more than usual that night, and I said that I needed to go on a walk to cool off because I didn't want to break anything. Girlfriend said that if I left, she was locking the door. I didn't care, I just needed to get my head clear. She did lock the door, and I realized she had my car keys. I threatened to call the cops, but she didn't believe me. So I called the cops. When they showed up, she claimed that the car was hers. They asked her for proof, and she pulled out the registration, which was in my name, including the insurance. She started screaming that she helped pay for the car, which made it hers. Entitled mom stepped outside and tried to back her up. The police politely told them that they couldn't do anything and that the car was mine and to please hand over the keys. The cops left, and after a few threatening words from entitled mom and girlfriend, I left and never looked back. Now I'm married to someone who has stable parents and an unconditional love for me, and we're about to move into our own house after years of building each other. The packing and moving reminded me of this messed up time of my life, and I figured here would be a great place for me to tell my story. Have you ever had a girlfriend or a boyfriend whose parents were crazy? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
I love Mama and Papa Reddit. I don't know how they wound up having you.
Entitled mom spends unemployment money on cruise, then wants a refund. I work for a customer service center, and before lockdown, I was taking calls for cruise and travel insurance. I would speak with entitled people all the time, but one lady in particular still stands out in my mind. The name has been changed to Karen to protect the guilty. So it's been a rough day, as I listen and sympathize with people's problems that are causing them to have to cancel their cruise. Then, just a couple minutes before my lunch, I get Karen. Now I should mention that the company I work for is in no way affiliated with any cruise line. We just contract labor for the insurance company and have no control over the insurance policy or the decision of the claim. So I give my greeting in an upbeat and cheerful manner because I'm good at my job and part of my job is to be friendly to people, even if I'm feeling lousy. So after the greeting and getting the info to pull up in her account, the conversation goes like this. Karen.
Yeah, finally. I had to cancel my cruise, so I need to get a refund.
Me. I'm very sorry to hear that you had to cancel your cruise, but I would be happy to help you. What was the reason that you had to cancel?
The state canceled my unemployment, so I need to get the money back.
Now at this point, I should mention that the insurance policies that the people sign says that they can get a full cash refund if they have to cancel for one of the reasons listed in the policy, or if they don't qualify or don't want to provide documentation. As long as they paid for the plan in time, they can get a cancel for any reason. Cruise credit equal to 75% of what they paid for the cruise, not including what was paid for the insurance. The most common reason is for a medical emergency. Needless to say, just wanting your money back doesn't qualify for a cash refund. So I'm thinking I must have misheard her or something. So after a second's pause to gather my wits, I say, what did you say was the reason you had to cancel? Karen, audible sigh.
I paid for this cruise with the money I got from unemployment, but I just got a letter from them saying I won't be getting any more unemployment money after the end of this month, so I need that money back to pay bills.
Me, baffled. Ma'am, I do apologize for the inconvenience. The policy that you purchased has two sections. The first one is the trip cancellation benefit, which offers a full cash refund in the event.
Yes, that's the one I need.
Me. The first one is the trip cancellation benefit, which offers a full cash refund in the event you have to cancel your trip after you pay for the insurance.
Yes, I told you that is what I need. How soon do I get my money?
Me. The first one is the trip cancellation benefit, which offers a full cash refund in the event you have to cancel your trip after you pay for the insurance for one of the reasons listed in the policy. Unfortunately, having your unemployment insurance run out is not one of the reasons listed in. Karen.
What? I was told that I could cancel for any reason and get my money back.
Me. There is a cancel for any reason cruise credit equal to 75% of.
No, I need it all back.
Ma'am, I do apologize for the inconvenience. Per the policy, the full cash refund minus what was paid for the insurance is only available if we can document that the reason you canceled for is one of the 8 specified reasons. Otherwise, there is the cancel for any reason cruise credit.
A cruise credit? I don't need me no cruise credit. I need my money back.
Ma'am, I'm sorry for the confusion, but the policy says that we can only offer a cash refund if you have to cancel for one of the specified reasons. Those reasons are.
So, what are those so-called reasons?
Me. The first reason is for sickness or injury to yourself, a traveling companion, or a member of either of your immediate families. That is diagnosed and.
So what if I say I'm sick?
I'm very sorry to hear that. As part of the claims process, we will need documentation of your sickness from your doctor. So we.
What? Those are my private medical records. No way are you getting my private medical records. You have no right to see them.
That is, of course, your choice. But the policy does say diagnosed and treated by a licensed physician. So if we aren't able to get the medical documentation, we would not be able to offer a cash refund. There is, however, the cancel for.
Well, if I say that I'm sick, that's all the documentation you'll receive or have any right to.
Well, you're welcome to submit a claim, but if we can't receive the medical documentation, we will be unable to provide a cash refund.
But I need that money to pay rent and buy groceries for my kids. Are you saying you want my kids to be starving and homeless?
Me. I'm very sorry to hear that. Perhaps you can speak with the unemployment office to see what they can do.
I already tried that, and they said they wouldn't. I need that money.
Me. Then perhaps you could see if there are any kind of state or local assistance programs. Or perhaps a local church or charity would be willing to help you.
So, what you're saying is that you want my kids to be homeless and starving? I didn't know they were going to end my unemployment when I paid for this cruise. It's not my fault.
Me. I'm very sorry to hear about your financial difficulties. Unfortunately, I can't change the contract. Perhaps.
No one told me I had to give no reason to get my money back. I shouldn't have to give no reason why to get my money back. That's why you buy insurance.
Me. I'm very sorry for the inconvenience. I am unable to alter the contract or change the reasons listed and
what are those reasons?
So I go through all of the reasons listed in the policy, and surprise, surprise, none of them apply to her. So she even gets more upset and is screaming even louder and demanding to speak with my supervisor, since she says I want to see her family struggle. I tell her I'd be happy to get her manager on the line as soon as possible, but that they can't change the policy either. Karen demands to speak with someone who can. I inform her that any changes in the insurance contract would require the sign-off of the entire legal department, which is a guess on my part, and that even then it would only apply to new policies, not ones already signed. So she demands to speak with the CEO, like I have the CEO on speed dial or something. So I offer to submit an escalation to our executive team. Karen, still screeching, tells me she don't need no executive team.
I didn't ask you for no executive team. I told you to let me speak with the CEO.
I tell her that the executive team is the highest level I have access to, and even there, I don't get to talk to them, just submit escalation requests. But she says that's not good enough and demands the CEO's private cell phone number, insisting she knows that I have it. I don't. She keeps threatening to call the cruise line and tell them to fire me, but I keep trying to tell her that I don't work for the cruise line. Eventually, she says she's going to sue me and send me to prison and hangs up. I, being the friendly and helpful person I am, submit the escalation and make sure to put in the exact details so that if she calls in again, people will know what she's up to. And then I go to lunch, secure in the knowledge that I'm most likely never going to hear from her again, especially since she kept on calling me the wrong names the whole time. Well, what do you think? Should Karen have gotten a refund that she wanted or not? Please let us know.
Honestly, I wish she could have gotten the refund for her family's sake. But then again, there's no telling she even would have spent it on them. Who knows?
My house has to have a uniform appearance? Okay. So this happened in the early 2000s. I had a chance meeting with an old friend who reminded me of this story. Just for clarification's sake, I had an accident which left me with a long road to recover personal mobility. At the time, I lived in a third-story Victorian-era apartment, so I bought a ranch-style house that was better suited to my recovery. The house was 3-bed, 2.5-bath, detached garage, and by my opinion, a rather ugly shade of yellow. My girlfriend at the time took the opportunity to move in with me. Beyond family, I had 2 regular visitors, a personal trainer, and an aide. So for argument's sake, I can't say that everything leading up to the malicious compliance was brought on by one single neighbor, but at this very least, if I had a fire, she was pouring gasoline in it. I quite quickly met 2 of my neighbors upon moving in. The 2 couldn't be any more opposite if they tried. One neighbor, Al, an old biker whom everyone should have a neighbor like at least once in their lives, and the other, Wilma, nosy neighbor extraordinaire. The rest of the neighborhood was a great blend of ages, ethnicities, families, and not. Just good people doing the best they could. Things started off on the wrong foot. More appropriately, wheel with Wilma. Right off the bat, she made it clear that she was the type of person to personally inspect anything you did to your house, and she did not mind telling you if something wasn't up to her standards, which included my old '69 Chevy truck she clearly thought was ugly. Note, throughout this story, I was not able to drive it as I was mostly wheelchair-bound. However, I kept it registered and ready. Though for some reason, Wilma loved my girlfriend and would talk at length to her. My girlfriend did not share the same feelings for Wilma. Al, on the other hand, being a gearhead, quickly decided that I was his new best friend. Looking back, I'm glad Al was there. I'm not sure I ever told him, but he definitely had a way to pick me up on even my worst days. Anyways, problems mounted very quickly. I had hired a contractor to make some modifications to the house, and we were nearly constantly hit with inspections and stop work orders. It was clear that someone was complaining, and more often than not, Wilma seemed to be in the know about what the inspection was for. I remember one day my contractor calling the police because she was constantly on site and butting in. After that day, she'd stand on the sidewalk watching everything. Shortly after construction ended came rumors that I was cheating on my girlfriend. Nikki, my aide, was by most accounts a very attractive woman, but I wasn't her type. To be blunt, no guy was. Then came rumors that I was having an affair with my trainer. Of course, these rumors spurred the local church flyers and occasional visits to attempt to save me. Nikki tried to put on a good face, but she was clearly bothered by it, and that upset us all. Come one day, Al had had enough and confronted the church member as they were walking up to the house. It wasn't anything physical, but it was loud enough with open windows to hear Al let them know that we all had had enough. Wilma called the cops, but at least that harassment stopped. From that day on, it seems like I either had the city or the police knocking on my door all the time. If Al took me for a ride in my pickup, cops were called. If my truck wasn't parked, by whoever I let drive it in my garage at night, city was called. If my grass was a touch shaggy, city was called. If I was in my garage and dropped a wrench after 10 p.m., cops were called. If we had friends over and we were boisterous after dark, cops were called. Nikki's fiance came over and planted some flowers for me. She was a sweetheart like that. Yep, city came and visited, and I had to have my yard rearranged. So much for low-maintenance yard. All the while, somehow, Wilma seemed to know everything about what was going on. One evening, we had a bad storm. In the storm, a large branch fell off the oak in my yard and ripped off several rows of siding. Sure enough, city came knocking as my contractor is cleaning up the branches. I ended up with a notice to repair the siding on the house or face penalties. Now, we couldn't get the same siding, and to be honest, I was a bit excited to get rid of the ugly yellow, at least on the front of the house. My contractor made some emergency patches to the siding while we were supposed to decide what to do. Of course, this brought Wilma out, who informed us that the city code required a uniform appearance of the house, and Wilma was not a fan of my stating that I was thinking the house would look good in a tan color. She was trying to steer me back to yellow because my second choice, white, would have been too many white houses in a row, in her opinion. Cue malicious compliance. I confirmed with the city that yes, the house had to have a uniform appearance, which meant that I would have to at least paint the rest of the house to match the front. And that was really the only restriction. Somehow, during this time, I had found out that Wilma absolutely hated the color fuchsia. So I proceeded to tell my contractor to paint the house fuchsia. It just so happened that Wilma was away the week that my house was repaired and painted. So upon her return, she wasted no time coming over to demand we painted a different color. My girlfriend looked her straight in the eye and said something to the effect of, "It's such a lovely color and certainly wakes up the neighborhood." Wilma stormed off. Aftermath. That was more or less the end of our direct conversations with Wilma. She did call the city, who came out and gave us the blessing to keep the color. And she did complain about the hideous house across the street to our neighbors. The officers were also more or less done with her harassment towards us. I'm not sure what they said or if they said anything, but there was a definite reduction in visits. About a year later, Wilma had a heart attack, which she survived, but decided to move closer to her kids. I moved out a year after that, and I found out via said friend that the house is still fuchsia. Have you ever had your neighbors call the cops on you? If so, what was it for? Please let us know. No, I can't honor that price. I've worked at a big box retail store for a little over 3 years now, and I felt the need to post one of my millions of crazy stories. This happened about a month after my first day, so I was still pretty new, part-time, and learning a little bit every day. Of course, they don't provide the best training for people and just kind of throw you wherever and see how you do. It's definitely a learn from your mistakes kind of a job. It was my first 9-hour shift on a Sunday, and I was closing on the registers. Of course, everyone rushed up to the registers 5 minutes before closing, and I had a line of 4 people with big transactions. I managed to get everyone out of the doors 3 minutes after closing. I started collecting all of the hard tags and hangers to put them on a U-boat so that I could take them back to the stockroom. My manager was at the other end of the store shutting down the other registers. Loss prevention has already left for the day. 10 minutes after closing, I see a heavyset 30-something woman with a shopping cart stuffed with kids' clothes literally running to my register. All smiles. Let's call her Kelly. "Looks like I made it just in time." Me, obviously aggravated and wanting to get home. Actually, we are closed,
but I can ring you up really quick. Kelly starts tossing her items on the counter, and the first item had a clearance sticker directly on the barcode, which happens occasionally. I price corrected the item and moved on to the next. Lo and behold, the next item also had a clearance sticker right on the barcode, and the next, and the next. At this point, I know that the customer was popping tags like Macklemore. I started staring daggers at her as I had to peel off every clearance sticker to scan the barcode. Kelly becomes fidgety and checks her phone for any coupons we have. She looks up and notices I stopped price correcting. Kelly, what are you doing? Me, I noticed that somebody put clearance stickers on active product, so I'm not going to honor the prices on the sticker. Kelly, being defensive. Well, that's not my problem. This is your guys' fault for being stupid. Me, having done a couple of price change events, knowing darn well that we wouldn't do that. You see how the stickers are directly on the barcodes? We always put the clearance stickers above or below the barcodes, never on top. Also, it shows the original price on every clearance ticket and none of them match. Kelly, then who would do such a thing? You tell me. Silence for a few minutes as I'm peeling all of the stickers carefully to scan the barcodes. 20 minutes after closing rolls around and I'm stuck with an armful of go-backs and still helping this customer. She ended up buying about half of the merchandise in her shopping cart and using a coupon. Kelly, huffing and puffing. I'm never shopping here again. What happened to the customer's always right? You're a jerk. Me, in the best customer service voice. I hope you have a great night. Thanks for shopping with us. Kelly irritatedly grabs her bag and walks out of the doors, less than 10 minutes before I'm supposed to clock out. Thankfully, I haven't seen Kelly since. I told the closing manager exactly what happened, and she was baffled by the situation. Fire department and the produce department are now one and the same. The context. I'm a firefighter and paramedic in a small suburb, roughly 7 square miles and 12,000 people. We have a single grocery store in our district, which we visit pretty much every shift to buy ingredients for dinner. Because of that, we're pretty well known in that store and the surrounding community because it's such a small part of town. The story. Last shift, my crew decides to stop by the grocery store in the afternoon right after we finished up a call for a vehicle accident. We were still dressed in our turnouts, the bulky yellow gear we wear for fires and rescues. My partner and I leave our jackets in the engine and go inside to buy stuff to make buffalo chicken salad. While we're grabbing veggies, I hear, "Excuse me," right behind me. We get a lot of questions from people in general, so I'm pretty used to being stopped in public while on duty. I say, "Yes, ma'am," and turn to find a middle-aged lady standing next to the oranges. "Are these the only oranges you have?" I'm a bit dumbfounded and reply with, "I don't work here, ma'am." Her response, which still baffles me, "Are you sure?" My partner and I just exchanged confused looks. There we were in t-shirts and hats with fire department all over them, bright green radios on our waistbands, and wearing baggy yellow pants with reflective stripping, obviously the uniform of one who works in the produce department. She got a bit annoyed at my silence and held an orange up to my face. "Oranges? These? Do you have any more? Or are these the only ones you have?" Still somewhat in disbelief, I answered, "I work for the fire department." She said nothing, but motioned to my partner, who was dressed exactly as I was and standing right next to me. "Excuse me, do you have any more oranges?" He snorted down a laugh and told her, "Yeah, I don't work here either." She threw her hands up in exasperation and walked the other way. We left the produce department to go get chicken and pretty much asked each other, "What the heck?" only to be approached by her again at the front of the store. "Excuse me, when will you have the rotisserie chickens again?" Still making an attempt at being polite, I explained for the 4th time, for anyone keeping score, that we don't work at the grocery store because we're firefighters. She lets out a sigh and snaps. "Then you shouldn't be wearing a uniform in public." My bad, I guess. You never cut the pizza straight. One guy complained every week that we didn't cut the pizza straight enough. To be fair, we probably didn't cut it particularly well most of the time, but this guy kept calling and kept complaining even after we made sure to cut his more carefully. After every delivery, he'd call and complain, and the manager would give him a 50% off code, mainly to get him off the phone. Every week, we'd expect his call. Every week, he'd call us like clockwork, bang on about how we wrecked the pizza last week, and insisted that someone else should double-check that the pizza is cut straight, or he'd be complaining again. This went on for a couple of months. We found it pretty funny. It didn't really affect us, and he actually tipped the leftover change, which is moderately rare in Australia.
Over the weeks, we really tried to make his pizzas as perfect as possible. One of the guys even made up a template on a pizza box with centering circles and perfectly aligned marks for where to cut. Nope, still not straight enough. Eventually, the franchise owner found out and said we can't keep giving him free vouchers, even though 50% off it was still very profitable. So we politely cut him off from the discount vouchers. But that just made the complaint calls longer, and he complained harder because he expected better for a full-priced pizza. One week, the manager thought it would be funny to mess with this guy and cut his pizza really messed up. I think we ended up with 9 vastly different sized slices. This just upset the customer even more. So much so that he took photos, the paper kind, and brought them into the store for the owner to see. Apparently, the owner thought it was funny, but he still warned the manager, saying, "Don't mess with this guy. Just cut the darn pizza straight so he stops complaining." Which is when I had my malicious compliance idea. Cut the pizza straight. Yes. When his pizza came out, I grabbed a tape measure and cut him 8 parallel, equal width slices. We discussed making them equal area, but couldn't work out the math. We boxed up his long, straight pizza fingers and sent them off for delivery, and that was that. He stopped complaining, still ordered occasionally, though not as often. As a bonus, we started cutting our staffy pizzas into long parallel slices. It actually works pretty well. Karens are starting to travel again. I come in at 3 p.m. and my coworker explains how this super shiny tried to do an online check-in for another person using her account for the room. Her card declined, so she couldn't online check in. This woman spoke to a manager about it and hung up on him because she didn't get what she wanted, to check into a room without paying. About an hour later, the guy comes to check in. I explained the card declined and asked for another form of payment. He says he'll be right back. He asks how much it is and leaves. About an hour later, he comes back. "I couldn't figure it out with the other person on the reservation, so I'll just use my own card." Fine, no problem. The night goes on. I'm up and down several times delivering linens for pull-out couches. The phone rang off the hook a few times with people asking for availability. We're sold out all weekend. This man that I check in, I saw him several times and he never approached me. This is important. About 3 hours after that check-in, I get a call from the super shiny whose account it is. Right from the start, she's extremely rude and abrasive.
He checked into a dirty, filthy room that was not cleaned at all. This is unbelievable.
Yada yada, so abrasive. Me. Sorry, which room?
209.
I look at it. Me. Oh, I'm sorry. I have seen him a few times and he never said anything. Her.
Well, it is.
Me. I'm sorry. Are you on property?
It doesn't matter if I am or not. I demand compensation.
Me. I'm sorry. I'm just very confused. I've seen him walk by several times and he never said anything. That's worrisome. Her.
I need your manager.
Me. No one is in right now.
Well, when will one be?
Tomorrow morning.
What time?
By 10 he'll be in.
I'm going to call the super shiny desk about this. This is unbelievable and horrible service.
Me. Oh, well, if it is, then he can certainly say something so I can help. Her.
I'm getting my money back.
At this point, a guest walks up while she's yelling at me. Me. Ma'am, please hold on for one moment.
No, I will not hold. I am calling the brand and getting my money back.
She hangs up. I have seen this man several times, at least 5 from when he checked in until right now. He has never approached me or called the desk to complain. This crazy is not even on property and is complaining. I called the room 3 times after that phone call and with no answer. I even saw him 2 more times and he never approached me. I wanted to call and ask how I could help them. If the room is that bad, you should say something. I can certainly move you if it's that bad. Also wanted to call for the dramatics because she was really upset. What the actual heck? My husband is a doctor. I deserve to be seen now. Come here, you fine people, and listen to the story of another Karen in the emergency room. I worked the day shift today. In Germany, we work 5 8-hour shifts a week and have 2 days off, not like the 12-hour shifts which our friends in the US are pulling. We have a 3-shift system, morning, day, and night. My day shift starts at 11:30 a.m. and ends at 8 p.m. regularly, but I work mostly overtime since lockdown. It was a really cool shift today. I worked with my work wife, my work boyfriend, and other nurses I'm cool with, so yay. Patients were dripping in slowly, nothing major, A broken leg, a bee sting, an allergic reaction, and a dog bite. Normal stuff. But then I felt a disturbance in the force. The room temperature dropped like 5 degrees downwards. All the dogs in a 3-mile radius started howling. Something unholy set foot in the hospital. A monster every service and retail worker fears. The mortal enemy of every manager. A mom bee. A middle-aged, middle to upper-class lady. A Karen with her kid. Like the Sith, there are always 2 of them. A master and a student. I sat at the front desk and did some desk work, scheduling some x-rays and MRIs, handling with some insurance IDs and so on. Clearing throat. "Excuse me?" The battle cry of the Karen. In front of me stood a middle-aged lady, fake pink nails, and clutching the wrist of her kid. The girl pressed a piece of paper on her forehead, probably bumped her head and maybe needed some stitches. Me. "How can I help you?" Karen. "My princess bumped her head. She needs help. She may have a concussion." Me. "How are you feeling, sweetie?" Kid. "I'm fine, but my head hurts." Me, coming around the front counter. "Did she faint?" Karen. No." "Did she throw up?" "No." "Okay, sweetie, can I have a quick look at it?" She showed me her forehead. She had a laceration and probably needed some stitches. I then checked her eyes with a little light. I was sure she had not had a concussion. Me. "Okay, please fill out these forms and the next available doctor will look at your daughter." Karen. "What? My kid needs medical attention now. My husband is a surgeon here, so get going." Me, massaging my nose in a very annoyed way. "Please fill out these forms and sit down and wait, miss. All our doctors are busy with patients right now." Karen. "Don't you listen, boy?" Boy? "Lady, I'm 24 years old." "My husband is a surgeon. He's on good terms with the management, so watch your mouth." Me, looked her dead in the eyes. "Take the forms, fill them out, sit down, and the next doctor will have a look at your daughter's head." She probably noticed that I didn't take her crap. I'm working the ER since I finished nursing school. I developed really thick skin. I got yelled at, spit at, punched, and shoved, and got thrown at with stuff like cans. They waited maybe half an hour until the ER doctor could look at the kid. And what a surprise, no concussion. Just 3 stitches on the forehead. "And, does she have a concussion?" I asked with my best grin when she passed the front desk again. She just huffed and left the ER. And now the best part. Near the end of the shift, a surgeon came into the ER. He asked especially for me and apologized for his wife's behavior. He will tear her a new one when he gets home today. I told the doctor, "No problem. I've seen worse. Just talk to your wife and tell your kid I hope she gets well soon." The kid was quiet the whole time and was a really sweet kiddo. God, I hope she doesn't end up like her mother. I hope the Karens go out with the baby boomers like the dinosaurs did with the comet. School expelled me for mom's anger. We sued and caused a reform. So I have a really bad leg. I've had 13 surgeries, long story, and had just started at a new school. After the first 3 weeks, I had to go in for another procedure on my leg. Not that big a deal to me, I've been here before. Upon my return, I had documentation of my restrictions, as well as some special amenities that were required. The big 3 were that I needed extra time to get from class to class, must have someone escort me, and needed unrestricted access to the elevator. All of these got me recurring problems such as constant harassment by teachers and security about my being in the halls during class time. And why was my cousin out too? He was filling the role as my escort, as I have anxiety problems and we had the same classes. These first 2 were annoying, but easy enough to deal with. The real issue was the elevator, as I was told multiple times that for security issues, I couldn't have a personal key due to it sharing the same functionality with the interior door keys. I would never have had any issues with this, as I was told there would always be someone on the same floor as my classes to open the elevator for me. This, of course, was untrue about 75% of the time. The lack of elevator access meant that I was always stuck in the halls when other students were going class to class, and was constantly late due to having to wait for someone to come by and open the door for the elevator. This also meant that I would sometimes be stuck waiting through the entire lunch period, and due to my absences, couldn't afford to simply go to lunch after the fact. After about 3 weeks of this, I was tired of not getting to eat lunch. So I did one of the stupidest things I could have attempted and tried to use the stairs. For context, I was not on crutches. I was on a full-blown walker. About halfway down to the landing, I fell hard. As lunch was letting out, one of my friends found me, got someone to help pick me up, and carried me to the office. Another one of my friends went to find my other cousin. The one who normally escorted me wasn't there due to being sick, so I was without escort because I couldn't bear the thought of a stranger escorting me, who, when getting to the office, managed to get me to calm down enough to give them my mother's number. Now, my mother is quite hot-tempered, but can keep a level head normally. When she heard I fell, she was there in record time. When she got there, she immediately asked what happened. I told her I didn't want to miss lunch again, so I tried to use the stairs. Big mistake, as that really set her off. She immediately turned around and demanded for the principal and VP to get in here ASAP. As soon as the principal and VP walked in, she started going off on them in a fashion not suitable for most adults to hear, let alone kids. When the VP made an offhand remark about my condition, my mother was swarmed by local sheriffs that provided security for the school's entrances and office as she physically went after the VP. We were escorted out, and after looking at the file and realizing my cousin and I had the same address, they figured out that I didn't actually live there. Now, my grandmother's address was listed as she looked after me after I left school up until about 8 p.m. She also was raising my cousin after an issue between her and my aunt. They used this as grounds to expel me and told her I can be some other school's problem now. I was then enrolled at the school near my house and had to have yet another surgery to repair the damage that was done as a result of my fall and redo the work of the previous procedure. I had gotten multiple statements from teachers as well as my doctors, and my parents were moving forward with a lawsuit naming the VP, principal, as the county school board. We were contacted by a lawyer who had won multiple cases against our school board, some of which went to the state Supreme Court, and he told us that he would take our case pro bono. He was getting tired of going against the board and thought a case like this would be what it took to try and fix their crap. Fast forward 9 months, and I was walking out of court with a settlement to cover all my procedures, as well as a written confirmation that the school would be going through a complete administrative overhaul and that the principal and VP would be let go and have their administrative credentials revoked in our state. My new school was let know day one my medical requirements and my need for a personal elevator key by the superintendent and the head of the State Board of Education. Long story short, school majorly messed up with handling my medical requirements, resulting in a lawsuit that cost the head administrators their jobs, as well as a full-blown county-wide investigation of disability procedures. He said extra spicy, so I gave him extra spicy. This happened a few months ago to a friend of mine. A little background, my friend is mixed with white and Mexican with very pale skin. He usually gets mistaken as just a white male. His dad also owns a Mexican restaurant. To start, around 3 p.m., these guys walk into the restaurant. Friend was working the register and greeted them. They look at him with disgust and start speaking to each other in Spanish. They started going on and on about how he shouldn't even be working there and how he knows nothing about Mexican food. After they finished their rant, the following conversation went like this. Friend: Hi, welcome to our restaurant. Can I take your order? Guy 1: Yeah, we want to try your nuclear tacos challenge and make sure it's extra spicy. It's basically this challenge where you have to finish 3 spicy tacos in 5 minutes. Guy 2 in Spanish: He probably thinks extra spicy is ketchup. They laugh. Friend smiles and goes to the back to put in the order while handing each of these guys waivers and pointing them to a table. Cue the malicious compliance. Friend goes to the back to put in the order. Well guys, we have another one. Make sure it's extra spicy, he says with an evil smile. Friend grins from ear to ear while they make the tacos. He watches them put on the special sauce made specifically for rude people like this. He happily walks out of the kitchen and places the food on the table in front of them. Friend asks to take a video and before and after photo, which they happily agree to. Friend takes the before photo and sets up the camera in front of them, making sure it was connected to all of the TVs in the restaurant. Friend reads over the rules. No drinking anything before the time is up. Finish all 3 tacos, no giving away food, and prizes, a t-shirt with "I beat the nuclear challenge" on it, a photo on the winner's wall, and a free meal with their next visit. Friend goes over to the speaker and announces, Listen up, Guy 1 and Guy 2 are attempting the nuclear challenge. Any words you'd like to say before we begin? Guy 1: This is gonna be a walk in the park.
Guy 2.
Yeah, this doesn't even look like a challenge.
Friend.
Let the challenge begin.
Friend starts the timer and smiles as the men start to struggle after the first bite. Guy 1 turned beet red, and Guy 2 looked like he was about to throw up. Both men tapped out before finishing the first taco. Friend comes over and takes their after picture. Guy 1.
Forget you. I want to speak to your manager. We know the owner. I can get you fired.
Guy 2.
Yeah, no one can finish that. Are you trying to hurt us? Get your manager right now.
Friend goes to get his dad and brings him over to the men. Dad.
What seems to be the problem, sir?
Guy 1.
Your employee was trying to hurt us. I demand a refund.
Dad.
I'm sorry to hear that.
What did you order, sir? Guy 2.
We ordered the nuclear taco challenge, and it really hurt us.
Dad. I'm sorry, sir, but the waiver clearly states that we can't get sued and we don't have to reimburse you if something happens during the challenge. Guy 1.
We can and will sue you. I want to speak to the owner. We can get you fired.
Dad. I am the owner. Friend was watching from the register and could barely hold in his laughter. Both guys walked out while screaming at Friend and Dad. The fallout. They did try to sue, but nothing came from it. Surprisingly enough, more people were interested in the challenge after their performance. Friend makes sure to give everyone the actual sauce for the challenge. Me and Friend still laugh at the video to this day. What was the spiciest thing you've ever had? Please let us know.
I once ate a whole habanero pepper. Never again.
Am I the jerk for literally ignoring my mother when she popped by unannounced? My wife, 30 female, and I, 32 female, we're both women, are new parents to a baby. This is pretty big since just a few months ago we'd had our hearts broken. Saying as we never thought we'd have a baby so quickly, though we are 150% over the moon. We've also had a lot to learn as new parents. My wife's parents are perfect and amazing. They always help out, even if they only pop by for an hour. My mom, on the other hand, has a lot to say and butts in constantly. Pouts when we ask for the baby back, talks like the baby.
Mommy wants to take you away from Grandma, but I won't let her. Princess demands their grandma change her into their pretty outfit. Mommy put me in a boring one.
I have no more patience for my mom's steamrolling, especially since she's barely acknowledged my nephews since the day baby came home. She even objects to her name and insists that we change it or call her by a nickname that she deems acceptable. My mom's behavior is nothing new to me, so I told her several times not to drop in without calling. If she's 5 minutes away or 30, it doesn't matter. I don't want guests dropping in to sit in my messy living room to play with a baby while ignoring my wife and I. That doesn't fly with me. On Sunday, we were going to my in-laws' house for brunch and time to relax. I told my mom 3 times when we spoke on the phone during the week that we weren't taking visitors this weekend and we had plans. Wife and I were getting ready to leave. She was with the baby when I brought the diaper bag and stuff to the car. Who pulled up when my wife came out? My mom. I was already frustrated, so I went right up to my wife, told her to pretend that she's not here, and don't even look at her. Mom starts talking to me.
Where are you going and why? How long will you be gone?
And I walk past her. Wife put the baby in the car seat. My mom said she was doing it wrong. As soon as my wife is in the car, I look at my mom and ask why she didn't call. Mom insists she doesn't have to call when she was already down the street. I told her that's not how this works. My daughter is not a show pony, and I'm sick of her acting like she knows best while disrespecting my wife and I. Until she actually calls before she visits, we will not entertain her anymore. When we returned home, my mom was waiting for us in her car. I had a feeling that she'd do something like that. Wifey and I had agreed to just ignore her and walk right past her when she tried to follow us. It was a little rude of me, but I shut the door in her face. She called my cell over and over again, waiting to be let inside, but I just let it ring. Needless to say, I've been flooded with messages from relatives saying that I acted childish and cruel. How dare I keep my daughter away from her grandmother? The only people on our side are my sister and in-laws. So tell me, am I the jerk for ignoring my mom the way I did? Edit. Thanks for all the feedback so far. Post has only been up for an hour, and I feel vindicated. Wifey and I already decided to put my mom and several other relatives on timeout, especially since a lot of them showed no interest in our lives until we had a baby. Tells us all we need to know about their priorities. Once my mother is in a calmer headspace, I'm laying down the law with her.
I want to be fair, but I have to be firmer with her too. Who do you think is the jerk? OP or her mom? Please let us know.
We all have boundaries and they need to be respected. Better luck next time, Grams.
A customer wanted her ice cream crunchy, so I made it crunchy. Briefly during the lockdown, I worked as a manager at a Ralph's, a New York City area ice cream chain. And one night, as I'm helping out scooping, I hear a customer getting annoyed at the window and started to get snappy with one of our youngsters who was working the window. So I head over to smooth the situation as manager. The woman is mad because the hot fudge on her hot fudge sundae is hot and going to melt the ice cream. I explain to her that the hot fudge is indeed served hot, but she insists, so I make her a new sundae with magic shell topping instead and let her keep the hot fudge one. By the time I return with that, this customer is stirring her spoon through another cup of ice cream, kind of like a sherbet she ordered, obviously about to complain about it. The flavor she ordered was called Graham Crunch, and she proceeded to tell me that there wasn't any Graham Crunch in it, that she ordered this flavor all the time and she knows that I am intentionally not making it crunchy for her. I tell her that this is just how the flavor is, and I don't name or make the ice cream, but she isn't having it. She wants me to fix it. We've got some crushed graham cracker topping in the back, so as she's yelling at me, I just walk away from her and grab the entire container and come back to the window with it. At this point, we've got a line of people down the block because this lady has held us up, so there's lots of witnesses to what I was about to do. Without breaking eye contact with her, as she continues to tell me that I'm wrong about the ice cream I scoop 6 days a week, I open the lid of the container and empty the entire thing over her cup of the offending ice cream. Graham crackers are everywhere. Her ice cream is now definitely crunchy. She loses her mind at this and starts yelling at me that she knows the owner and will get me fired. I tell her, yeah, Steve is a nice guy, and she responds with, I've known Steve a long time. To which I respond, well, his name is John. Get out of here and don't bother my employees for free ice cream again. Now sufficiently embarrassed in front of the long line of customers, the lady leaves in a huff and indeed never returns. The next few customers left us $20 tips in the jar to make up for her, so the kids who worked for me left with quite a bit more in their pockets than they normally would and realized that their manager had their back. Speaking of ice cream, what's your favorite flavor ice cream of all time? Please let us know.
Cookies and cream all day, bruh.
Am I the jerk for wanting to name my son after a video game character? My wife, 26, and I, 27 male, are both big gamers. We actually met through playing a game together online, and it's important to us. We're expecting a baby in October, and we couldn't be happier. This will be our first baby and the first grandchild on both sides of our families, so they're pretty excited to meet him too. Here's where the problem comes in. My wife and I were both greatly moved by the story of Arthur Morgan in Red Dead Redemption 2. We consider him one of the best fictional characters of all time. I've been playing video games for a long time, and his story is the only one to ever make me cry. It was my wife who suggested that we use Arthur Morgan as the first and middle names for our son. Not only would we be paying tribute to our favorite character, but there's nothing wrong or weird about the names, other than Arthur is a little old-fashioned now. But it isn't as if we're naming him Sonic the Hedgehog or Donkey Kong. My mother had a brother who passed when I was about a year old, so I don't have any memories of him. She's been pressuring us to name our son after him. There's nothing wrong with his name either. It's pretty common. Think something like Robert John. It's just not what we wish to name our sprout. My older brother let slip to my mother that the name we chose was from a video game character, and she completely lost it. She actually drove 30 minutes to our house so she could bang on our door and yell at us in person for honoring someone who doesn't actually exist over her flesh and blood sibling. I understand that she still misses my uncle, but while this may be her grandchild, he's still first and foremost our son, and we already think of him as Arthur. That's going to be his name no matter how she feels about it. When we tried gently and then firmly to advise her that we respected her position but that we weren't going to budge on ours, she walked out and told us that she would have nothing to do with our son and would never acknowledge him as family. Am I the jerk for not making my mother happy and just giving her a freebie on this? I've actually always had a really good relationship with her, and it would hurt badly not to have her in my life or my son's life. My wife says that as parents, We are going to have to learn to advocate for ourselves because people are always going to be telling us that we've done something wrong and disagreeing with our parenting decisions. Well, what do you think OP should do? Should they give in to grandma's demands or not? Please let us know.
Absolutely not. If grandma's really going to act like that, they'll probably be better off without grandma and her shenanigans.
Your shirt is red. Get back to work and make my order now. All right, little bit of info. I work at a retail and gas station called Rhodes. You may have heard of it, you may have not. And my boyfriend works at Casey's, another gas station but in a different town. Some workers at Casey's wear red shirts. At my job, we also wear red. However, my shirt says Rhodes on it, so it should be clear, even after mistaking it at first, that I don't work at Casey's. I actually used to work at Casey's, so I know the ropes around the store. Here's the story. I'm at Casey's to pick up my boyfriend, and I walk in, to say hi and ask if it's been busy. I order some cheese sticks and walk out towards my car. A woman, maybe in her mid to late 30s, asks me,
What are you doing with that?
Now, me being two-faced only to customers or strangers, I tell her in a bubbly, bombastic voice that I'm just going to my car to eat. Now, I didn't think why in the world she would be asking me this as a stranger, but I still try to answer her in case she may have mistaken me for someone or something. With a really rude voice, she exclaims,
Get back in there. You're supposed to be making my cheese sticks.
Me, completely dumbfounded. Oh, I don't work here. My boyfriend does though. He's probably working on your order right now. I work at another gas station called Rhodes. As I point to my shirt where it says the name of my job. Lady.
No, I spoke to a girl. Her name was
my real name.
That has to be you.
Now I had forgotten my name tag was still on, and there just so happens to be another girl with my same name who works at Casey's, who may have answered the phone in the kitchen taking orders. Me. No, sorry ma'am, I don't work here. There's another girl who works here with the same name as mine. You may have spoken with her.
No, because she sounded just like you. Same name, same voice.
Me. I honestly don't work here. Like I said, I work at Rhodes. It's a gas station where I live. As I point to my shirt once more aggressively. Now after this, my social battery starts to run out after a long day of having to fake a happy voice for people buying crap and trying to make conversation with me when I have better things to worry about. Lady.
Yeah, but your shirt is red, just like everyone else's here. You probably just grabbed a random red shirt and went into work like that. You probably don't wash your clothes since you smell bad too.
This is, in a sense, what set me off. I recently moved into a new apartment and haven't had time to do laundry except wash the shirt she was talking about. It gets hot at my job, so I sweat constantly and end up smelling. Me. I've told you multiple times I don't work here. Now leave me alone. Karen yelling at me as I walk to my car, ignoring her.
I'm going to get you fired, you jerk.
I just give her a gesture and lock my car doors and turn my radio up so I don't have to hear any more of her crap. She eventually leaves with her cheese sticks. Honestly, I really get baffled at times that people are really this dumb or crazy. I'm only 19 and I ain't got time to listen to someone making assumptions or firing BS they know nothing about. First time I've had an encounter like this, and I hope it's the last. Changing shirts before I pick up my boyfriend from work from now on. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.